Negative thinking can destroy. We're going to talk about that. Negative thinking, if you look at it positively, can also create. Let's take a look at what I mean by that. And probably a good place to start would be to offer you a story. The ultimate human story. You know the story. We've heard it again and again. It's in every ounce of literature, whether it be in drama or whether it be children's literature. It doesn't matter what culture or what background you have, you've heard the story. It goes something like this. An ordinary person like you or me makes a decision. And the decision is to go on a quest, to go on a journey, to do something that's going to make a difference. And in this ordinary journey, this person does extraordinary things and becomes a hero. How does it happen? Well, you or I, this ordinary person, set out on this journey. We made a decision. And along the way, if we're real lucky, what do? We meet a very wise man who gives us some magic words or weapons. And thus armed, we travel on to a fairy kingdom or an enchanted castle in some far-off realm. And in seeking to reclaim a kidnapped maiden or a priceless treasure or a holy grail, what do? We battle off the invaders. We fight off all the problems. On our quest, we encounter wonders beyond our description, as well as monsters of 1,000 kinds. But armed with the pure heart and the wise man's power, we slay the dragon, we liberate the treasure, and we return home with the prize. That's humanity's favorite story. You can find it as the plot of tales and myths from every age and culture. Sometimes the hero's name is Lancelot. Other times it's Luke Skywalker. It's the basic plot of the Iliad and the Odyssey, of Dante's Divine Comedy, of Ramayana of the East, of Jack and the Beanstalk, of Raiders of the Lost Ark, of the game Dungeons and Dragons. The appeal, the special excellence of this basic story is that it can be appreciated on many levels, as a simple adventure story or as a description of a spiritual journey. Now tell me, haven't you had the dream? Haven't you dreamed of the person who makes the difference, who helps everyone, who's loved by everyone, where you help to change the entire community, or your family, or your friends? I think we've all had dreams. The question is, where do they go? See, for most people, they had dreams when they were a kid. They dreamed of these kinds of things. They say, yeah, but that's stories. That's not real life. You know, I went out there in real life, and I got those magic words. I paid for them late at night on television. You know what? And those words came, and I went out and tried to buy that real estate for no money down. You know what? It didn't work. Those magic words didn't work. He wasn't such a wise man. Or the weapons weren't strong enough when people said no. I don't know what kind of story you have, but I know a lot of people had dreams, and they've got all kinds of reasons why when they went out on their journey, when they tried their quest, it didn't work. And a lot of them are legitimate. But you know what's interesting? A lot of people have dreamed and approached their dream over and over again, each time failed to slay the dragon, failed to come back and win the maiden's hand, failed to come back and free their friends, and pretty soon they've given up. And giving up is the ultimate danger. The message of the power of positive thinking is a message in belief. It teaches us that we must be able, no matter what the environment, to focus on what we do have, to focus on how to turn things around, to focus on how to make things work. The message of the power of negative thinking is simple. Focus on what you don't have. Focus on how things are not how you want them to be. And certainly you will find yourself unarmed and facing a dragon that is ferocious, one that you know you cannot defend against. And whether the dragon eats you or not, you'll still feel the pain as if he had. What do I mean by this metaphor? Well, I got a question for you. Those who slay the dragon, those who free the maiden, those who come home to the joy and happiness that they dreamed of, what do they all have in common? What do all these ordinary people who become extraordinary by doing extraordinary things have in common? Well, one might say they were positive thinkers, without a doubt, and I would have to agree. But what does that mean? The bottom line is we read the stories of people who find out what resources they really have, because they're able to get themselves to be confident where other people are fearful. Really, what is the power of positive thinking? It's the power of faith. It's the ability to generate a feeling of certainty in yourself when nothing in the environment supports you. See, every great achiever I know, I don't care who it is, whether it be Lee Iacocca or my daughter Jolie, anyone who makes a difference, anyone who contributes, anyone who produces a quality of life, a result that is measurable, that other people aspire to, all these people have something in common. They're positive thinkers. You want to be a hero? Learn to create certainty in the face of fear. What is negative thinking? For most people, the power of negative thinking is the power to destroy. The power of negative thinking is really the ability to allow yourself to operate from fear instead of faith. And that is when your life falls apart. Out of fear, most people constantly focus on the worst that could happen, anticipate it in advance, and thereby try to avoid even participating in something where they may not end up on top, where they may not achieve, where they may not be able to make things work the way they dream them. But see, the greatest way in the world to never achieve your dreams is to never take the first step. The greatest way in the world is to make sure you create nightmares about your dreams, and allow those nightmares, your fears, to slowly eat away, to cut away at your courage, your power, your decision, your ability to move forward. And I got to tell you, I think most people in our society have learned to become negative thinkers. For most people, they've given up on their dreams. The kingdom they were seeking is too far away now, and the land they were pursuing is far beneath the waves, a place they'll never be able to reach. It's too deep, it's too far. And you know why people have taken this attitude? It's not because they don't care. It's not because they don't want to dream. It's because so many people have had dreams, and they've tried, and they've tried, and they've tried, and they've quote-unquote failed in their mind to achieve. And so, you know, there's something interesting about the human brain, and that is that the human brain is always working hard to avoid what? Pain. And it's always trying to gain what? Pleasure. Now, after failure, trying and trying and trying, and it not working and not working and not working, what some people link up is, boy, getting excited, really going for it equals pain, so I better not even try. I better stay right where I am, because at least I know how to deal with that. And what happens is we have extraordinary people that settle for mediocre lives. So you don't want to fall in that trap. And it's so easy, isn't it? Haven't you failed there at least some point in your life where you felt so jaded and so frustrated and you tried so hard and you gave your all and it still didn't work that you felt like, why even try? I certainly know I have. That's where I was about 6.5, 7 years ago. All because I felt like, man, I gave my all and this is the reward? Why even try? Why even do this? I began to adopt the power of negative thinking, the power to destroy my life, and it didn't take long. It took me about 120 days to destroy everything I'd worked for 4 years to create. It doesn't take long when you indulge in that practice. It only takes a little bit of poison to kill somebody. You don't need to drink 6 gallons of strychnine. Just a sip and it's over. We got to make sure that every day we stand guard in our minds and make sure we're directing our minds rather than just falling for whatever is dumped in it by the environment around us. It's critical. Because what we think about daily is what's determining how we feel, what actions we take, and therefore each day what we think about is shaping our destiny. And you know what's scary? Sometimes the poison is offered by a friend. I think it was said best by my good friend and one of my original teachers, a man named Jim Rohn. If you ever get a chance to hear Jim, I hope you'll take the time to go listen to him speak. But Jim used to have a great thing he said to me. He said, Tony, you know something? Every day you got to watch your mind. You got to watch what's getting in there and watch who you surround yourself with, because friends can poison you. In fact, that's kind of harsh. He said, but look, Tony, he said, look, if you got a cup of coffee here, and he said your worst enemy comes by and puts some sugar in your coffee when you're not looking, what's going to happen? I said, well, I don't drink coffee, but if I did, I guess it'd be pretty sweet coffee. He said, that's right. He said, what if your best friend, even by accident, drops a little bit of poison in your coffee? I said, I'd be dead. He said, that's right. Lesson 1, watch your coffee. Right? And he said, lesson 2, make sure when you're watching that coffee that you put in it what you want. You don't let other people do it for you. We've got to watch our minds. And I'll tell you what, if we don't, you got to realize that gravity is constant. If you don't every single day try to put something positive in your mind, something that's going to build, something that's going to help you to construct a greater quality of life, if you don't do that consciously, what will the news provide for you? What will the environment around provide for you? Gravity is constant. Negativity is constant. We must resist it in order to have the muscle and the will to shape the quality of our lives. Hey, what are the consequences, though, of being negative? What are the consequences of looking for what's wrong instead of what's right? The consequences are the destruction of your dreams. The consequences of giving up on everything you could possibly want in your life. And the scary part is so many people in our society have been conditioned to think this way that I think it's affecting the structure and quality of life in America. That might be a pretty big claim to make, but think about it sincerely. As long as people believe that dreaming equals pain, that their future is the same as their past, then that's exactly what will be true in their life. Pretty soon what happens is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We get what we look for. If you want to find something dirty in your room, look around, you can find it. You want to find a problem in yourself, you'll find it. You want to find a problem in somebody you care about, you'll find it. It's not hard. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. If you look for the bad, you'll get more of it. You look for the good, you'll have that too. But we've got to be careful about the conditioning. But again, what's made us as a society become so conditioned to the negative? Besides the media, what else is there? Well, we hear in the media and we've been shaped by a series of negative references. Painful experiences that have taught us, boy, if you really believe in someone, if you got a hero, if you believe in your country or a key person, you're going to have your beliefs shattered, your emotions destroyed. All that you've invested will not come back to you. You will lose it all. So quickly protect yourself. Don't get too excited. Don't get too happy. Don't expect too much. In fact, the lesson seems to be today, expect very little, and that way you won't be disappointed. Be quote-unquote realistic, which is nothing but a fancy word for saying be negative, look for what's wrong, try to find something wrong in advance. It's one of the most destructive forces that can enter our lives. But why are we that way? Well, look the last 30 years. John F. Kennedy was assassinated, then Martin Luther King, then Bobby Kennedy. Progress towards limiting discrimination and racial bigotry became painfully slow compared to what we expected. We went through the scourge of Vietnam, the Watergate scandal, Jim Jones. Then in the 70s, the hostages were taken to Iran. We had double-digit inflation, growing unemployment, and then we got to sit down in an oil crisis where we sat for miles waiting to get gasoline. Right at the peak of the negativity, right when people just about given up, something interesting happened. We threw our pendulum one way, and somehow we had tried to balance it. And one way we may have tried to balance it is we hired a guy. We recruited a guy. We voted him in. His name was Ronald Reagan. And while Reagan certainly wasn't the source of the shift, he certainly became one element in making us look at life in another way. And I think we put him in that position because we needed him at that time. Ronald Reagan was an optimist. Ronald Reagan was a positive thinker. Ronald Reagan had references throughout his life that, hey, looking for what's wrong is not going to do it. I got to find out what's right and amplify what's right. What doesn't work, I just need to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And he came from that simple approach, and he changed the way a lot of Americans looked at themselves. He changed the way we looked at ourselves as a nation. The day that he was inaugurated, they released the hostages from Iran. And there was a new surge of optimism and possibility. We began the best economic run in our history, and patriotism was once again fashionable. But there was still big trouble in El Salvador and in Nicaragua, and then came the Iran-Contra affair, Noriega in Panama, the brutal murder of drug agent Enrique Camarena, the drug problem growing wild, now even reaching the grade school children. Then there was corruption in the Pentagon, in HUD, Ivan Boskis of the world, the savings and loan crisis, the budget deficit itself, scandals with television evangelists like Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart. See, after a decade of things like that, those kinds of experience, a lot of people say, why even try? If you believe in anything, if you put yourself on the line, if you try and learn something from someone, you have somebody who's a hero, that hero is just going to disappoint you. You better not have any role models because they're just going to hurt you. Make sure you pick an anti-hero. That's the only way to really succeed. And we have articles like in USA Today. I picked up one that I saved the other day. It was from November 27, 1989. You know what they said about the 80s? Here's the opening paragraph. The 80s were the years of excess. We swaggered through our portals and grabbed as much as we could as fast as we could. We were greedy and gluttonous. And as long as we wore starched shirts, we could belch at the dinner table. Listen to the kind of paragraph. And it goes on and on and on about how horrible people were in the 80s. Leaves out a few things, doesn't it? Leaves out things like during the 80s is when we had times when people witnessed things like Band-Aid, Farm Aid, Hands Across America, We Are the World, where children in the South Bronx scraped together their pennies so they could feed children who were starving to death in Africa. It was a terrible time. It was a time when some of the great role models in our nation were people like Bill Cosby. A little difference from the color discrimination of the past. Everything in our society has become stronger. We had our greatest run in economic history. And yes, we've had our worst budgets. But there are other things that we've learned, other resources we have. So in order to be negative, we have to generalize. We have to look at what doesn't work. We have to focus on that enough till that becomes real. What is the truth about the 80s? The truth about the 80s is simple. It's whatever you focus on. The reality is you can walk into a room with a camera and a party, and if you focus on the corner of the room where people are fighting, where things are horrible, where people are mean, boy, that was one mean party. But if you go in that exact same room and you look through that camera, but you focus the camera on the opposite end of the room where everybody's having a great time, people are loving and contributing, you're going to say, what a wonderful party. The same is true of your life. The same is true of the nation as a whole. Do I say we should become naive and just trust blindly? No. What I suggest is we have balance, that we use the power of positive thinking and the power of negative thinking. You say, you keep alluding to that, Tony. What does that mean? Here's what I mean. Here's how we do with our life in a way that I think is intelligent and works. Step number one in life, see life as it is. And I say see life as it is, here's what I mean. See as it really is. Don't make it worse than it is and don't make it better than it is. Just see things as they are. To the best of your ability, it's still not going to be accurate. But look at things. You got to notice where you are. But don't make it worse than it is because all that does is make you feel overwhelmed and want to give up. Step two, see it better than it is. Use the power of positive thinking. That is, develop a vision in your mind of how you want things to be. Get clear about what your goals are. Get clear about what that dream is. Get real specific. And with that precision, with that power, with that vision, when things get tough, you can look at that vision and you'll know what you're going for. It'll pull you through the tough times. And step three, make it like you see it. Take your world from where it is and make it like the vision you have. You can't get stuck on the past. You can't get stuck on what used to be done to you or someone used to disappoint you. That's a great way to make sure you never go for it. Classic example, lady in one of my seminars one time. She raised her hand, asked people, what do you want? She goes, well, I like to be closer to my husband. I used the precision model. I said to her, well, what prevents you from being more close to him? She goes, well, I don't know. I said, well, if you did know, what would you say? She said, well, I'd like to be closer to him, but, he just never seems to be close to me. I said, ma'am, what would you need to do to be closer to him? She goes, well, I don't know. I guess I'd have to just treat him better. I said, well, why don't you do that? She goes, well, I don't know, because if I treat him better, he may not treat me better. If I'm really loving to him and I give my all, he may not give his all. I said, so great, ma'am. If you never give 100% to your husband, 1,000% of your commitment, of your love, why should he ever give 1,000% to you? She goes, well, I'll meet him halfway. It'll never happen. See, the way to make a relationship work is not to meet somebody halfway. You got to give 1,000%. If you give 1,000%, you're creating the place for them to have 1,000%. Out of her fear that he may reject her, or that she may give her all and he may leave her anyway, she doesn't give him enough to make him want to stay. And the relationship will end. Our fears, whatever we focus on, we get. We got to break out of that. See it as it is. See it better than it is. Make it the way you want it. Let me give you 5 steps to really utilizing the power of positive thinking, even though I said this is about negative thinking. And then let me show you how to use negative thinking in an assignment. How to make negative thinking something that's useful for you. So step number 1, decide to develop the habit right now, the habit of focusing on what's right in your world instead of what's wrong. The habit of focusing on what you do have instead of what you don't have in a situation. And as basic as that is, and as well as you know it, you've got to make it a habit. Because those habits form the chain of your ultimate character, of who you become and how you end up living your life. We've got to condition ourselves, because if we don't, we'll go back to the automatic state that most people live in today's society. The way to develop the habit is to go on a mental diet. I did this several years ago. As positive as I was, and I was going through unbelievable pain at the time. I'd had some major disappointments, some frustrations. I felt like I'd given it all. But what turned me around is one day I picked up this book called The 7-Day Mental Diet. It was a little tiny little booklet. And all the booklet really did was, for about 12 of the 14 pages, it challenged me to really see if I could really truly, for 7 days, live my life without one negative thought. And it kept saying throughout the book, now don't just say, yeah, I can do it, and don't just say, I'm going to do it. Think for a while before you commit to this. Don't actually commit unless you're really going to do it for 7 straight days, no matter what. It doesn't mean you don't have a negative thought. It just means that if you have a negative thought, you don't speak it. You set it aside. You forget about it. Or you replace it. If you say something negative, you go erase. What I really mean is this. Or you say, that's not what I mean. Here's what I mean is this. And you immediately focus on something good. It's not that nothing negative ever comes out. It's that you immediately do not allow yourself to hold a negative feeling, a negative thought for 7 straight days, day and night. Even when it gets tough. Even when somebody disappoints you. Even when you get frustrated. Even when you give your all and it still turns up lousy. Listen, if all I did was rant and rave on this tape and you didn't listen to anything else I said, but you took on this 7-day challenge, you can't believe what it'll do to your life. Now I gotta tell you, when I first read the book, I thought, wait a second. Being positive isn't gonna change my life. I gotta deal with the real problems around me. Those real challenges that are out there. I don't want to just be positive. Somebody says, how's it going? I go, I'm doing great. And they go, why? You go, I don't know, but I just feel good. I don't want to be that way. I want to be real. I want to be on top of things. But you know what? I thought, wait a second. I can be positive about solutions. I can still notice that there's some challenges out there without being negative about it. I can look at the challenges and say, okay, here's what's good about this. Here's how we can use this. Here's how we can turn this thing around. And continue to focus on that. So I took on the challenge for 7 days, changed my life. Now, by the way, one of the keys is you have to have 7 straight days of being absolutely positive. Not one negative thought, not one negative expression that you hold on to. Got to let go of it immediately. If you do not do this, if you're 3 days into it and you do well, and then you have a bunch of negativity, you got to start over. And you know what? After you go about 4, 5, 6 days in a row doing really well, something major negative is going to happen. How's that for some positive programming? But what it is a test to see how committed you really are. I'll tell you something. After 7 days, you feel like a different person. People around you respond to you like you're different as well. All you want to do is establish the habit of noticing what you do have instead of what you don't have. Noticing what's great about a situation versus what's not great. Focusing on solution instead of problems. That's what changes your life. Here's key number 2. Instead of judging yourself and others, decide, remember these are decisions, decide right now to become curious instead of judgmental. Remember, when you find fault in other people, when you start noticing constantly how they've wronged you, how this person is not good enough, or they're too egotistical, they're too proud, or they don't really care about people, as soon as you start judging other people, you just got to remember something. If you start judging other people, you're going to also start judging yourself intensely. If you're angry at other people, there's a very good chance you're angry at yourself as well. Maybe we need to perceive more and judge less. Maybe instead of finding fault with other people without really thinking about what they've gone through to be where they are this day, maybe we can get really curious about what's making this person be in the state they're in, or what's the motivation behind this person's anger. For example, a lot of times we think somebody's being negative or angry or we're frustrated with them, but we never bother to find out what's really going on. I know myself, I was at a party recently and I fell prey to this. There was a woman who came to the party. Everybody behind her back was saying how unbelievably egotistical this woman is, how negative she was. But you know what? I sat next to her at dinner time and I got a chance to really find out who she was. I got curious about her. And I began to find out about all the pain she'd been through in her life. What I realized was this woman was just barely hanging on to her life. She just needed to know that people cared. But she was so afraid of being rejected that she put out this ego because she didn't want someone to reject her. So she figured she'd reject them first. And I got a chance to really know her. She was a wonderful person. I'll tell you something else that we've got to be careful of that ties in with this, of our being judgmental. Out of our fear of having heroes in our society today, we seem to try and consume them and destroy them as quick as we can. We try to find something that's wrong with our heroes because, boy, we don't want another Jim Jones. We don't want another Jim Baker. Remember, we got to judge less, perceive more. We got to get curious. Instead of living in a society where we're so afraid to believe in anything or anyone that we believe in nothing at all, and we lose our power of positive thinking. We try to protect ourselves from things we maybe not even need to protect ourselves from. Or we live in a society where we try and destroy our heroes, where we take somebody like Barbara Walters, incredible broadcaster, a woman of incredible integrity, who gets nailed by one person in a book, and it's in every newspaper across the land, how she probably stomped on people to get where she was. That's absurd. Or Martin Luther King, after he's passed on, somebody comes back and stomps all over his career and his reputation. Is that the society we want to live in? Any person who takes glee in watching another person's pain will experience plenty of pain themselves. Remember the quote, "He who was without sin, let him cast the first stone." The bottom line is if you go looking for brown, you're going to find it anywhere you look for it, in others or yourself. Free yourself from the disease of making others wrong, and you'll free yourself from the disease of making yourself wrong. You have a lot more energy to create solution instead of problems. It's part of the power of positive thinking instead of falling for the destructive power of negative thinking. If you want to get curious, just ask yourself, what do I like about this person? Wonder what's going on with this person that would make them feel this way. How could I help this person? As you ask these kinds of questions, you may learn something about how human beings operate, about their motivations, maybe even some things about how to support yourself as you try to support others. Remember, get curious instead of judgmental. Here's key number 3. If you really want to develop the power of positive thinking as a habit, as a lifestyle, as a strategy for success, then decide right now to find something to appreciate from any seemingly negative person or situation, and develop the habit of giving compliments. See, if you really want to have some more positive feelings in your life, you got to keep focusing on what's right. You got to get curious. And most importantly, you got to find something to appreciate even in the tough times. Because in reality, as we've talked about so often before, the toughest times in your life sometimes provide you with the real resources to change your life. So what we've got to do is find something to appreciate. Not someday when things work out. We've got to appreciate where we are right now. And this is something I talked to my daughter Jolie about today. Because she's in an experience today where I thought, well, gosh, she's not being very positive. I'm going to talk about positive thinking. Because she came in to see me and she's feeling really sad. She's feeling really down, feeling really frustrated. And you know what her problem is? Her problem is she tried out and won the right to be amongst 3 girls who danced in the Electric Light Parade at Disneyland. And that was about 3 or 4 months ago. She had been going there after school every day, driving from San Diego up to Anaheim, burning herself into the ground, getting up and going to school to be a straight-A student still, and trying to visit with her family and her boyfriend. And she found herself maxing out. Now think about her problem. Her problem is that she gets to be at Disneyland and fulfill a childhood fantasy. Her problem is that she loves her family and wants to be with them as well. Her problem is she loves to be at school and really do that. Her problem is she has so much abundance that she has to figure out how to get it all in one day, and she can't do it, and she's physically burning out. That's her problem. And you know what? She says, gosh, I want to be home. I want to be with you guys and all these things. I don't want to miss out on all this great time we have together. I want to be with you guys. I said, well, honey, look what you're doing. She goes, yeah, I don't want to miss out on Disneyland either. I don't want to miss out on my career and what I'm doing and what's going on. What's the problem? The problem is she's finding out what's negative in both situations. She's focusing on what she doesn't have instead of what she does have. Now, I could be negative about that and say, gosh, be more positive. But you know what? In reality, I realized being negative in this situation may not be bad. What do I mean? I don't mean being negative. I mean being intelligent. I mean being critical in your thinking. Seeing what you don't have is sometimes useful too. This is what I promised you in terms of the power of negative thinking. Here's how negative thinking can be useful. I sat down with her and I said, honey, let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of both. Let's not just be positive. Let's look at it. The whole thing is positive. Let's know that no matter what you choose, you've won. You have what most people dream about. But for a moment, let's be a little bit critical. What do you love about Disneyland? What's great about it? What is it giving you? And let's ask the question that maybe we don't ask very times when we're just being purely positive. What isn't it giving you? What are you afraid about? What are you missing by being there? What's great about being at home more? What's great about those things? What's not great about that? Be honest. If you were there, what might happen that's not good? What might you miss out on? And you know what? By getting her to use both positive and negative thinking, or to be more accurate, positive thinking and some critical thinking, looking at what isn't there for the moment, what she is missing out on, and allowing that pain to motivate her, she was able to clarify what's most important in her life and what's the best way to do that. And she came up with a plan that totally empowered her. After a couple hours of conversation and fun, she looks better than she has in about 6 months because she's finally resolved what's most important. And sometimes just being positive and keeping a stiff upper lip isn't enough. Sometimes you got to stop and say, I am positive. I'm going to approach this from a positive way. I'm going to stay in a positive state. But I'm going to ask some questions some people may think of as negative, which is, what isn't working? Because if you're not willing to look at what isn't working, you can get yourself in trouble. So when I say number 3 is, develop the habit of noticing something you can appreciate out of the situation, even something that seems to be negative. What I mean by that is, find out what's working, but also appreciate what isn't working. Appreciate it enough that maybe it creates enough pain for you to want to make a change. Hey, being purely positive all the time is not the ultimate solution. Being purely positive 98% of the time, to me, is the solution. Remember our steps. Number 1, you're going to focus on how it really is. And that's what we did today. Jolie and I sat down and said, let's see how it really is. And let's not just be positive. Let's stop for a second. How is it really? What's good? What isn't good? What's great? What isn't great in this context? Everything is great, but comparatively, what's great? What's not in both situations? Now, how do you really want it? And she decided how she wanted it. Now, what are we going to do to make that happen? And she began to take actions that have changed her life. Probably will affect the direction of her life, maybe even her career. And she feels joyous and excited because she went through the steps. That's the balance between positive and negative thinking. But one thing you got to remember, you're going to spend most of your time being positive. Once you see how it is, that's it. Decide what you want and make it happen. Don't keep going back and saying, oh yeah, but it's not working. See, balance doesn't mean you spend 50% of your time positive and 50% of the time negative. Remember, balance on a human scale is a little different. Negative experiences are dense, and it doesn't take a lot of those focuses of negative to weigh a lot in your life. Make sure your focus is primarily positive, but at times, at special times that you designate, you're going to say, hey, what isn't working? And allow that pain to drive you to do something that's very positive. That'll change your life. Here's key number 4. Decide not to be perfect. You say, what? I said, decide not to be perfect. One way to make sure you're negative is always trying to be perfect. Because you know what? You're always going to notice you're not. Because you're this thing called a human being. When I talk to my daughter Jolie, this girl works so hard to be perfect. Everybody seems to love her. She's a straight A student. She wants to be the very best at school. She wants to be the very best at home. She wants to be the very best at Disney. She wants to be the best at everything. And I'm trying to be the best constantly. In the past, she always noticed what wasn't perfect, and that created pain. So you can't do that. You're going to screw up. You're going to be negative. Things are going to happen where you don't follow through on what you know. You're going to make poor decisions. You're going to say things you shouldn't say, do things you shouldn't do, mess up like you shouldn't mess up. But you know what? When that happens, instead of being negative and beating yourself up and saying, boy, here's another example of me sabotaging myself, decide what you do want. And say, I'm not perfect, but I am good. And what makes me good and what makes me great and what can make me excellent is as soon as I notice I'm not on track, I correct it. And I get better. Your goal each day is to get better, not to be perfect. And that's all anyone can ask of you. If every day you really try and contribute more, be more, and do more than you were slightly the day before, that's all anybody can ask. And if you know you're going to screw up and you don't make it a catastrophe, it's easier to bounce right back up. See, the only way you fail is if you quit. But if you learn something and you expand from it and you make some new decisions that enhance your life and the people you care about, then there is no failure. Don't try to be perfect because you'll never succeed. And here's the final one, key number 5. Decide to develop the habit of using the F word, faith. Make sure that you're in the position of utilizing the tool that really positive thinking is about. Positive thinking, I've said it over and over again, really is just the power to believe. And as you believe, so is it done unto you. As you believe, so it's created. You need to make certain that you create that certainty inside yourself. And you know what? You and I both know there are going to be times when it looks grim. And the only power you really have is that power to have faith. To step forth and say, I'm going to put myself on the line. I'm going to have the courage to overcome my fears and to take action, even though it may not work out. Even though I may put out my love and it may not be reciprocated, I'm still going to put myself on the line, because if I don't, that's the only way I can fail. See, without faith, nothing exists. And remember one more thing. No matter how bad it seems, this too will pass. That you've made it this far. You've been through tough times. Times you didn't think you could pull it off, and you've made it. If you've made it through all the challenges of your past and your life still works, you still seem to be somewhat happy, you're still standing, as they say, and gosh darn it, you're successful. And you can make it through this too. It's the thing that'll pull you through. Faith is still the power. It's your ultimate power. You know, for more than 14 years now, I've passionately pursued profound knowledge, those specific ideas, strategies, beliefs, and distinctions that empower us, once we really understand them, to immediately increase the quality of our lives. And in following this path, I've had the privilege to meet, to interview, and many times become very good friends with some of the most successful people in our modern culture. From legends like international money manager John Templeton or Wall Street market forecaster Robert Prechter, to some of the psychological and physiological masters, those people like Norman Cousins, Dr. Deepak Chopra, Dr. Bernie Siegel, some of the emotional coaches that I've met along the way, people like Dr. Leo Buscaglia, the love doctor, if you will, or Captain Jerry Coffey, the man who spent 7 years in solitary confinement in Vietnam and how he managed himself and turned himself around. Whether it's in business or movies or music, people like Peter Guber, these people never cease to amaze me with their ability to take a vision and make it real in spite of a lack of support from virtually everybody around them. No one jumped to support Bernie Siegel when he started talking about what human emotions could do to change the immune system, or Norman Cousins for that matter. When Robert Prechter first started talking in the 1970s about a Dow that would be at 3,000, everybody thought he was crazy. You know something, if you read a daily newspaper right now or you watch a television news show, you could easily be convinced by all the negative information and dispiriting stories that the philosophies that made these men and women's lives successful were fads of a time that's really past. That today, such an approach would fall short. After all, today with budget deficits, the imbalance of trade, the Japanese dominance overseas, one of the longest recessions in recent memory, the consumer's lack of confidence, the worst it's been in years, you know, most people are right now really preparing themselves for long-term bad times. I mean, with cover stories on Newsweek like The Lost American Dream and The Curse of Self-Esteem, and with daily talk shows covering such profound subjects as women who don't let their men leave the house or being jealous of your mother, it'd be easy to buy into the philosophy and actually fall into the trap of feeling certain that the good times have really passed and the future is indeed bleak. Why would people begin to believe this? Because, hey, our experience of reality can be depicted in a simple formula I wrote down the other day in my journal. I times F equals PR. Information times your focus equals your personal reality. Whatever information you're feeding your mind on a daily basis and you focus upon consistently, you're going to experience as being what life is really about. I look at some of these shows and I ask myself, where do they get these people? But for some people, that's their experience of life. That's their experience of reality. I recently read an article where one media watchdog group described that 96% of all information about our economy that's been communicated through the public mass media in the last 6 months has been negative in nature. They said even when the statistics are positive, the anecdotes the media uses are negative, i.e., unemployment went down today, but that's not going to help John Smith, who can't find a job and never will. Think about it. Think about the frame of reference that creates for people in our society who are getting most of their information directly from a medium, which is not designing the best way to condition your mind to produce quality results. And the challenge is that the average American now watches television 7 hours a day. That is the national average. Think of the quality of information that they're trying to build the quality life out of. We've all heard the term, we've heard it a million times, garbage in, garbage out. And by the way, if they're not sitting there in front of the television set, they get to read the newspaper. And you know what? Papers have to generalize. They have to simplify. In order to take something complex and make it understandable in a small amount of space, it's got to be generalized. It's got to be simplified. Plus, we have to remember that news has to sell. It is a business in this country. And as a result, what sells more? Certainly, pain-oriented news sells more because it's a necessity for us to know more about it. I was talking to economist Paul Pilzer, the author of Unlimited Wealth, recently, and Paul and I were chatting, and I said, why is it that we have this unbelievably insane negative focus? And he said, well, there's a lot of possibilities, and we both talked about some of Robert Prechter's work about how moods in our country and around the world go through cycles like seasons. But he said, the other thing, Tony, is you got to realize that bad news sells. I said, well, I've heard people say that before, but how do you explain that to people? I have a tough time with it. He said, well, the reality is simple. If you and I are walking down the street here and we look at a newspaper and at the top of it says, this weekend's beautiful and sunny, we look at each other and smile and keep walking. So, oh, that's great. If we walk by and we see big storm coming, suddenly, guess what? We stop to read and buy the newspaper so we can understand more. And so inherently, news organizations are not bad or wrong. They're only feeding the public what the public responds to. It's our own challenge. But the point of the matter is, if we don't consciously create a plan on how to feed our mind with information that can help us to make intelligent choices to increase the quality of our lives, then we only have ourselves to blame. And the challenge, though, is it's so easy to get seduced because everywhere you turn these days, somebody's got a bleaker picture to paint for you about what our future is going to be. But you know what? You got to remember that naysaying is not new. As long as there have been people with visions, there have been dozens lined up to stifle them. I don't care if it's somebody as far back as a Columbus or a Copernicus. And by the way, some of them just didn't want to stifle them. They wanted to kill them. If they disagreed with their viewpoints and they felt strong enough about it, they were physically attacked. Or some people just ridiculed. Somebody like Walt Disney. Here's a guy who was told by virtually every person he spoke to that his idea was absolutely ridiculous, that no one would go for it. In fact, he was turned down by more than 302 bankers before he finally got someone to help him to fund his vision. Stop for a second and just imagine the loss that millions of children, and for that matter, adults, would have around the world if Disney had been a, quote, reasonable man and accepted other people's limiting views of his vision. Peter Guber is one of the people I respect most in the world. He's the chairman of the board of Sony Entertainment. And you know what? He told me a long time ago about when he was first making the movie Rain Man. He was told that, no movie about some guy and his brother traveling across the country in a car is ever going to make it. You got to have action. In fact, 4 directors, including Steven Spielberg, quit the project. Many of them wanted to put all the sex and violence in it. And Peter said, absolutely not. This is a movie about a relationship. It's about the human spirit. He was totally unrelenting. He told everybody that it would win an Academy Award. And you know what? It won 4. But often the people that are bent on convincing you that you can't live your dream, they're really well-meaning. They don't want to see you get your hopes up only to see them dashed. After all, they're basing their views on reality, right? The challenge is that a person's reality is completely controlled by the information that you have available to you and that you focus upon. Yet those people who succeed in our society are those rare individuals who don't merely swallow the information that's fed to them, but instead they pursue quality information that will nourish their lives. They learn to trust their instincts. So often we hear we live in an information age, but it's not only the fact that information is available to us that shapes our lives, but which information we focus on. That's what determines how we feel and what we do. See, when millions of people learned that Hong Kong would soon revert to Chinese rule, the majority of people began to focus on their potential for loss, and what they do? They began to flee, and they took all their capital with them. By contrast, John Templeton had the same information, except he decided to focus instead on what was the potential for profit. He began to ask what companies the Chinese would need regardless of the environment. And you know what he did? He bought stocks from all the fleeing masses for pennies of their true value. What everyone else perceived to be a bad time, he perceived to be a phenomenally good time. It was a time of tremendous opportunity. And you know what? When all of a sudden people stopped fleeing and they began to think, well, maybe this is going to work out okay, and they started buying stocks again, sure enough, the emotional pendulum flew back. All of a sudden, people became extremely optimistic again, and John and his clients were rewarded for their immensely profitable decisions. They didn't go with the flow. They saw crisis as opportunity. In fact, in Chinese, you may know, the word crisis is composed of 2 characters. One of those represents danger, and the other one represents opportunity. So if there's anything that's evident at all, it's that not only are those who are succeeding creating their own path, challenging the traditional views of what is possible, but it's also evident that the people who follow conventional wisdom, the path of the crowd as it may be called, those who accept the norms, usually suffer. Not only do they suffer financially and emotionally, but I think they suffer at the deepest level of their psyche. They continually have to experience the mediocre, and they have to settle for an average existence with the unfathomable pain that comes with never touching one's true purpose or destiny. There is a price for going with the flow, and that price is the pain of giving up your dreams and taking the fall that those who fail to think for themselves must inevitably experience. Ultimately, how we evaluate what things mean and what we must do determines who we become and what we create and what we experience. Recently I did a seminar in Toronto, a one-day business seminar, and I asked a group of about 3,000 successful business people, how many of you here have wildly successful lives? Lives you're incredibly proud of and you feel profoundly grateful for. You know something? In a room of 3,000 people, less than a dozen people raised their hands. Now, the truth of the matter is, many of these people are more successful in business this year than they were in previous years. In fact, I'd been there only a year and a half ago, and when I asked the same question, hundreds of people had raised their hands. What was different? I think the difference was that they had begun to filter their lives through the barrage of media that's taught them to expect the worst, that the future is going to be dim, that there's little hope for change, and that if they're doing okay right now, it's not going to last, and that intelligent people have good reason to despair. Yet when I asked the same people to imagine visiting Russia, where they could observe men and women standing in line for hours merely to buy a loaf of bread that cost 3 times more than they ever thought they could afford, maybe even after standing there for that long, they don't even get the bread. Maybe they're out of it after spending a day. Or you live in a nation where there's no certainty about your government's stability even, or what the future could possibly hold. I then asked them again, how many of you feel like you have an incredibly successful life you're grateful for and proud of? Suddenly 3,000 hands are raised to affirm their incredible levels of success. And when I described to them some of the people that we had at our mastery program who shared their lives, or a young man I recently found out about who had cancer, had his body amputated from the waist down, a man who now walks on his hands, sometimes draping pants over the emptiness below him. Suddenly when I talk to the people now, the whole room began to realize, hey, they have no problems, that their bad times may really be good times after all. See, of all the things I've learned in my life, and out of all the profound advice I've had the privilege to receive, I'm sure some of the most important was that there's one thing you must do each day, it's to stand guard at the door of your mind. For whatever meanings you allow to enter it will take root, and from those seeds your tomorrows are going to grow. See, what does this really mean? Simply, it takes years to build something of value, and yet it can be destroyed in minutes if you allow yourself to be influenced by those uneducated individuals that have no idea the power or the reality that human vision and will carry. So clearly there are two paths. That of following the crowd, which clearly leads to destruction, pain, frustration. Standard education clearly gets the standard results. Thinking like the masses is a great way to make sure you never live your dream. And those who have the ability to go against the crowd, go against the general flow, are the people we often see as the geniuses. Again, whether it's the Columbus or the Copernicus or the Templetons or the Goobers, these are people that go completely against what others have thought, and that's why they've succeeded. Success is found in that hidden area that most people won't question, they won't look at. And the only way to change the quality of our lives then is to be willing to put ourselves out there and do something different. But why is this so difficult for us? See, some people are always talking about how they're doing things different, but they're not really doing things different. They're doing things like all their friends who are trying to do things different. They're modeling their friends. They're not really going with what they believe is right. They're not trusting their instincts. And one of the challenges and one of the reasons is we live in a society with so much uncertainty right now. It's increasing every day because, again, what's the information that's being fed to everyone? What are they constantly focusing on? Things that make them uncertain. They're looking to the past for answers. And the present is very different than the way it was in the past. People are not sure what to do. And there is a psychological principle that unless you understand it, you will be controlled by it. And that principle of human influence is known as social proof. Social proof is the single most potent way of influencing human behavior cross-culturally. I don't care if you're talking about in China, if you're talking about somebody who's living in the rainforest, or if you're talking to somebody living in LA. They all are influenced by social proof. Social proof simply means that when human beings are not sure, when they're uncertain about what should be done or what something means, they inevitably look to others to see how to feel and what to do about certain situations. It's part of how we always learn. We've learned by modeling. The belief behind social proof is that if enough people believe something, or if enough people do something, then it must be right. But no greater lie was ever told. That is not accurate. How many things can you think of that lots of people used to promote and do that you can see now are destructive? Hey, listen, 1 out of every 3 people in our country die of cancer, and I just read an article just the other day that now is up the figures. They're now saying that 80% of all cancer is directly related to lifestyle. 80%. 1 out of every 2 Americans dies of heart disease. Certainly what the masses are doing in terms of how they're eating and how they're thinking and how they're approaching health does not work. And those are just the top 2 diseases. 4,000 people dying a day of those 2 diseases alone. Just imagine that. When you were growing up, did people tell you, what is it, social proof, that everybody smokes cigarettes to be cool? You know now how stupid it is. But back then you did what the crowd did, or did you? Maybe you were unique. Maybe that's why you and I are listening to this tape together. Maybe we've always been this way. Or maybe you drank, or back in the 60s when everybody did drugs. The psychology of the crowd is one of fear. It's a group of people who are running around trying to find some way to get out of pain. They want a simple solution, something that may not even be the real solution. They're looking for the source of the pain, and they want to eliminate it. They're looking for somebody to blame. They're looking for an enemy to distract themselves from the fact that they don't have control of their own lives. And you don't ever want to get swept up in it. But it's so hard not to. Why? Because we're inundated with this information. It's everywhere you turn. It's on the radio. It's in the newspaper. People are talking about it constantly. It's on your television set. Unless you're conscious, unless you say, I must guard my mind, this kind of information that can do nothing but destabilize you, make you uncertain, potentially create a sense of foreboding or fear is going to be a part of your life. And you know what? If you manage to keep all the information out, and you keep yourself in a good state, people around you, the crowd, wants to push you into their way of thinking. It's like when they see somebody is thinking in a different way or a unique way, there must be something wrong with them. It's like they must be eradicated. We've seen this all the time. Human beings seem to have this upset with people that are different. I guess some people are afraid that if somebody else is different and they're happy, that maybe that makes them question whether or not they're doing the right thing in their lives. We don't want to allow that to happen to us. I know when I was growing up, I was always so different. I remember a few years back when I was going back to my high school reunion, and on my way going up there, I literally regressed back to high school. I felt like emotionally like I was back then, with a lack of confidence like I'd not had in years. And I was feeling kind of down, almost to the level of depressed. And I thought, this is ridiculous. What's going on with me? I began to realize it. So as I was driving up there, I decided to call my mom up on the phone. And I said, hey, Mom, I'm going up for my 10-year high school reunion. And she said, oh, my gosh, I can't even believe it. And she said, boy, does time fly. And she must have sensed something in my voice, and she said, honey, she said, I don't know what you're thinking about. She said, but I know one thing's for sure. You were very different back then. You were different than the rest of the people. You weren't accepted by them all. She said, but look what being different has gotten you in your life. And I thought, wow, moms sure have the right advice. Next time you got a problem, call Mom. I mean, that was brilliant input. Brilliant. I started looking around saying, look at my life now. Now I can't walk down the street anywhere in this nation without getting a chance to meet friends, people maybe I've never even met before, but listen to my books or tapes and have gotten great value for their life. I mean, I get this unbelievable reinforcement all because I was different. So I can tell you, if you look at these people, whether it be a Robert Prechter, or whether it be a Paul Pilzer, or whether it be a Peter Guber, these people are different. They're not like everybody else you're going to meet. That's why they're successful. Your goal should be to be different. Now, not just to be a rebel, that is to try and do the opposite of everybody else, just because you think by being opposite you'll be more successful or more unique. That's not it. Be yourself. Don't be what the crowd wants you to be. Don't bend just because everyone else around you wants to remake you in their mold. Realize that if you have a vision, that vision needs to be brought to reality, and you're the source. And that vision will only be brought to reality if you can continually focus on solution and not problem. Continually focus on the value you plan on adding versus all the fear and the challenge and distortion that will be surrounding you. Remember, what the majority is doing is not necessarily the most effective. You know, even Thomas Jefferson talked about the tyranny of the majority, that we have to be very careful. Just because the majority of people think something or believe something does not mean it is best. Some people say, well, I don't go with the crowd. I'm much smarter than that. I only do what experts tell me to do. Experts often think the same. They're often educated in the same way through some of the same systems. So of course they're going to come up with the same answer, the same results. We need to look at the people that are breaking the rules and getting results to know what's possible. So you'll never know what's possible until you attempt the impossible. You'll never know what you're capable of until you commit yourself to becoming more. But you can't do that based on the environment, on the social proof. You've got to do it based upon your imagination. Remember, imagination is more powerful than intellect. It's in our imagination, in our view of what's possible, that we create the possible. How many drugs can you think of? The miracle drugs that everybody promoted to us. Doctors got you to take them because they were taught to. They were taught that this drug was safe. Experts told them this was the best drug for the job. And yet now, years later, how many of these drugs, how many of these vaccines now are in the middle of lawsuits? Because thousands of people have found that the drugs themselves are creating disease in their body, or that cancer is now there as a result. Look at those things that we've accepted. One of the most common drugs given to mothers, pregnant mothers, was Benedictine, designed to take care of the morning sickness. And yet the reality is children started turning up with physical abnormalities. Women started developing all kinds of physical challenges, and all of a sudden, after years of saying this was the ideal drug, it was pulled back. We cannot trust because an expert has told us something that it is right. We've got to make sure we do our best to do our own research, to see if something makes sense to us, to see what the upside or downside is, to get more information, rather than just knowing that because everybody else is doing it, it must be okay. This doesn't mean the expert is trying to mislead you or that they're not educated. It just means the more important your decision is, the more educated you should be, the more information you have to be able to make conscious decisions for yourself. This is critical. And by the way, this means any kind of expertise. If I tell you something, you need to say, does this make sense to me? Does this jive with the information I have? Can I use this? And let me see what kind of results I get from it. Judge by that. You've got to study what makes sense to you. Don't just go with the flow. There's a huge price for going with the flow, and the price is pain. The most dramatic examples that we could probably list are those of somebody like a Jim Jones. Think about it. How did this man manage to get people to come up and murder themselves, commit suicide, and help their children to die by drinking Kool-Aid that was laced with poison? They knew what they were doing. How did they do it? He took them out of their normal environment. He took them down to Guyana, where there was no one to study or to notice how to respond except each other. And they were uncertain in a jungle they didn't know how to deal with. And they had a very dominant leader who was telling them what to think and how to think and what to do. And you know what? He influenced them. All he needed to do was get a few of his most intense followers to come forward first and drink the cups of Kool-Aid and to show them giving up their children. When others saw enough of them do it, they fell right in line. And to all but a very few who escaped, willfully, purposely, consciously killed themselves. This has got to be one of the most devastating examples, but unfortunately it's not the only one. Throughout human history, when people are not sure what to do, they look to somebody who seems to be certain, but because they're certain doesn't mean they're right. People can be certain and be wrong. They can be sincerely wrong. You don't want to get hooked. You want to make sure you're educated. Again, remember the criteria is the more important a decision is, the greater the potential consequences, the more you must consciously know and understand, the more information you need to make intelligent decisions that can shape your life for the positive. See, we got to remember again and again that information by itself has power, but only at the level we direct it. Remember the formula, information times focus equals personal reality. There's lots of great information out there, but if you don't get access to it, or if you have access to information but you don't focus on how to use it on a daily basis, then you don't have any power. You don't have any ability to create change. And throughout history, people have gotten false information or a limited amount of information that has cost whole societies. When enough people, when a critical mass of people know about some information, our world changes. But we've got to make sure that we constantly pursue the best information we can receive. So again, I times F equals personal reality. Information times focus equals personal reality. And we all want to have an experience of a greater reality. So how do we do that? We become more sensitive about the sources of information that we currently have, how we pursue new information, and what we focus on. The information we have and the information we focus upon determines how we think, how we feel, and what we do. Information shapes our destiny. So there are 5 information challenges that could show up in your life. And let me just point them out to you so you can become sensitive to them and you don't fall into the trap that I think so many of us have fallen in the past. Number 1, remember, information is worthless without a purpose. See, there's all kinds of information around you all the time, but if you don't have a reason to use it, you won't even notice it. There's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. The RAS, as it's described by experts, and it's a lot easier to say. That part of your brain, the RAS, is constantly determining what information that you're receiving from the world is significant enough for you to notice and to evaluate. In other words, right now while you're listening to my voice, you might be in your car. How many things could you be noticing inside the car, inside your body? Your heart beating really fast, the blood rushing from one section to another, certain pressure on different parts of your body. You could also be noticing things outside, like the person in front of you, which I hope a part of you is paying attention to right now. If you're at home, you could be looking at different things. You could be hearing different things. You could be smelling different things. There's so much information available. But your RAS, your reticular activating system, determines what is significant enough for you to evaluate. If suddenly in your car someone started coming from the other side of the road over, your brain says that's significant and you'd have to figure a way to respond quickly. The problem is if your RAS isn't sensitized to notice certain things, it just goes by because your brain can only focus on so many things consciously at a time. Whenever you make it clear to your brain that something is important, it's significant, it has a purpose in your life, then you start noticing it everywhere. A classic example that I've given so many times is when you suddenly buy a new car or you buy a new outfit, and then all of a sudden what happens? Everywhere you turn, you see this car all of a sudden. Everywhere you turn, you see an outfit like this outfit. What's happened? Those cars were always around you. Those outfits were always around you. But by letting your brain know this is significant, now anytime that information is nearby, your brain becomes consciously aware of it. That's what happens when you set a goal. When you tell your brain, this is what's really important to me, you start noticing anything that can get you to that goal more quickly. Well, the whole key here then is to know what your purpose is when you're studying, when you're pursuing information. If you know why information is important to you, then suddenly little things that didn't matter will show up, little ideas, little distinctions, and one simple idea could change your whole life. So if we want to maximize our ability to utilize information to expand the quality of our lives, we've got to constantly know what the purpose of our life is, what the purpose of a conversation is. What do you want to accomplish in your business, in your life, in your relationships? If you get real clear about what you value most, about what your goals are, suddenly information you weren't noticing at all, information that could immediately empower you, just jumps out at you. That's how I read books. When I go into a book, I ask myself, what do I want from this book? What is this book about? What are the potential answers from this book? What's my purpose in reading it? And I screen through it, and ideas jump out at me, and then I'm able to use those and share them with other people. So remember, you're not going to use your information unless you're clear on your purpose. Information without a purpose is worthless. Get clear on the purposes of your life physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, in relationships, in finance, and business. Know what's most important. The information will show up. The second challenge that we experience in an information age is that with all the information around you, you could still have an information deficit. That is, you could be in a situation where you don't know enough. Now, a lot of people are so frustrated with the massive amount of information that comes across their desk or into their mailbox or into their life that they've given up. A lot of people have rationalized it by saying, ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is pain. Ignorance is poverty. Ignorance means frustration. I don't care whether it be in the financial world or in the relationship world or in the parenting world or in business. What you don't know will hurt you. You've got to make sure that you get the information you need in order to be effective. It's not enough just to be confident. You got to be competent. And that means having a strategic plan on how to get a hold of any information you might need to be effective in a given situation. Just this one piece of information could totally increase the quality of your life. The lack of one piece of information could cost you a lot. I know in my businesses, having 9 companies with all the people that we have involved, I've had times where 1 or 2 decisions by an individual who wasn't completely informed have cost us tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've got to make sure that when we go into something that is important, that is significant, that we make certain that we have all the primary information we need to make intelligent decisions. And by the way, this information deficit can show up in a way that screws up personal relationships. Have you ever found yourself forming an opinion or maybe even getting mad about something, and then later on you find out you didn't even have all the information and you felt stupid about it, you felt bad about getting upset in the first place? I know I've done it. The bottom line is you're operating out of an information deficit. Sometimes it's not a deficit of information, but a deficit of quality information or a deficit of relevant information. Sometimes we've got so much information we don't know what to do. Once again, the more clear you are about what you're trying to accomplish, what your purpose or what your goal is, the better you can define what information you need. And don't assume you have all the information you need because you've done something successfully in the past. We're living in a time where change is happening so rapidly. The strategy used in the past may not work today. Make sure you're up to date. And of course, the best way to do this, the best way to make sure you don't have an information deficit is find someone who's getting the results you want. Sit down with them, tell them what you know, and ask them what you don't know that you need to know. If I'm going to go take a trip, and I'm going to go down some river, and I know that there are rocky rapids along the way, I want to take an experienced person with me to point the way, or I at least want to get them to draw me a map. See, to have them tell me, hey, you've been through this before. What is it I don't know that if I knew, my trip would be a lot smoother, and I could probably get there quicker, or I could enjoy the ride a lot more? Third major challenge with information, I call information pollution. What I mean by that is, well, let me give you a classic example. A few weeks ago, I don't know if you heard on the news or read it in the paper, but in several different newspapers and magazines, there was this article about how this new study had been done that said, hooray, guess what? Eating chocolate can actually reduce cavities. And by the way, this was not in the National Enquirer. And people were like getting excited about the possibility of it. Well, a few days later in the Wall Street Journal, they came out and described who had sponsored the study. And it was one of the largest chocolate manufacturers in our country. See, the bottom line is that company said, oh, they weren't just trying to support the organization of the study. They weren't trying to influence it. But it's not too hard to figure out that there might be a little influence there. So information pollution, by my definition, it occurs anytime someone is giving you information that clearly has secondary gain. If you've got a limited amount of information or information that's slanted or inaccurate, you got to remember that it's still going to shape your reality. You're still going to make decisions based upon the information you have as long as you think it's accurate. Make sure you don't allow yourself to be polluted. It's the same conversation when it comes to our health. You know, right now there are all these articles coming out about the drug DES. But here's a drug that was administered for 20 years. And now there are women that are infertile because of it. And they're suing like crazy. But you know, suing doesn't get back somebody's body parts. It doesn't get back their future. It doesn't get back the ability to have a child. And you know what? As early as 1955, some of these companies knew that the drug was ineffective. Think about it. If someone tells you something, make sure you ask yourself the question, do they have a potential secondary gain? That doesn't mean they're trying to mislead you, but do you think their own need could color the way they're describing things, even in their own mind? You don't have to put yourself in a state of distrusting. You just have to ask yourself, could their own needs, their own desires, either to make a difference or to produce a quality product or to profit, could it be polluting their view and therefore polluting mine? What's another source of information? Again, the key to all of this is whenever the decision you're going to make is critical, it's going to affect your health, your relationship, your business, you probably want to work hard to make sure you have no polluted information. Anytime you're going to make decisions about how to feel about a friend, somebody tells you, hey, this person here is treating people really harshly, don't just buy into it. It might be an opinion, it might be a distortion, it might be a generalization, it might be information pollution that's going to affect the way you think about this person in the future. Stop and ask yourself, is there some other explanation? Where could I get more information? Again, remember, somebody you may be giving the information may have totally positive intent, but they may not know what they're talking about. They may be sincere and yet be sincerely wrong. And there are those, as they talk about in government, who put out what they call disinformation campaigns. Those people out there who are deliberately trying to give you information that's not accurate so that you'll shape your decisions in a way that benefits them. Remember, the cheapest commodity on earth is advice. You can get it from anybody. So make sure if you're going to get advice, get it from somebody who's producing results, somebody who's already getting the results that you want. They're the ones who can tell you what works and doesn't. Don't go to somebody who's never built a business and have them tell you what's a good business to be in or not. Recently, I was reading an article in one of our nation's newspapers, and the article was very, very critical of business people in our culture, specifically some Fortune 500 CEOs and how they're just not doing the job, and that's why these companies are having to lay people off. Well, you know, it's real easy to criticize. It's very interesting to see if those same people that are writing these articles might get out there and try to do it themselves. They might find it's a little easier for them to criticize than to actually produce the result they're talking about. I've even seen some articles where some business deans were criticizing some CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. You know, you look at these business deans' backgrounds, and in 2 of the 3 cases, they've never even been involved in any business in their lifetime, much less if they ever run a billion-dollar business like the ones that they were criticizing. So you got to be careful. Once you know your purpose, once you know a result you want to produce, go to people that are currently producing results, the results you're after. If you know your purpose, they can help guide you. They can let you know, do you have an information deficit? What else do you need to know? They can help you to know, hey, what you've heard about this is garbage. I've done it. I can tell you. The 4th challenge with information is obvious. Information overload. Being in this information age, we've got to learn to break through and find out what information is really relevant to what we want personally. Otherwise, you find yourself getting caught up, not able to make a decision, because as soon as you get one piece of information, you get some contradictory information. You've got to finally say two things. One, what is the best source of my information? Two, what information do I specifically need to get a hold of? And three, what's the timeline for this? I could gather information for the rest of my life. There's a timeline where I'll have to have gathered enough information that I've got to make a decision. And when that timeline comes, make your decision. And finally, 5, remember, with information, whatever you feed on consistently will shape your life. See, if you constantly feed yourself with information about how terrible the economy is, you're going to feel overwhelmed. If you constantly feed yourself with examples, stories, people you seek out who are doing well at any time, then pretty soon you're going to start to feel that same sense of certainty that will empower you to find a way to take your business, your career, your personal life, your relationship to the next level. So there is a common theme here with all these. After you know your purpose, the common theme is finding someone who's produced a result, finding a role model. I've taught this for years, and it's helped shape my life. The bottom line is, it's never the environment. It's never the economy. It's never your potential. You've got all you need. All you need to do is feed your mind. You've got to seek out those role models, those people that have done it, who can give you the quality information that can both inspire you and instruct you to take your life to the next level, where you know that the human spirit is stronger than the environment, where you remember what you know inside about your capability and you make that capability into reality. So what's the essence of the entire talk today, this entire conversation you and I are having? It's to remember anything that you can dream, conceive, believe, act upon, and learn from, you can bring into reality, regardless of the environment. And while the current emotional season may feel like a deep winter to you, I want you to remember there are those who've learned to enjoy and even prosper in this season, right now, these supposedly challenging times. And 2, it's good to remember that throughout human history, men and women have come up against much tougher situations than we're currently experiencing. Right now, we're going through changes in our economy. Companies are becoming more efficient. People are being laid off. It looks like a very scary thing. How many times have we gone through it before? It's an economy that is breathing. It's been blowing out and exhaling for a long time. Now it's inhaling. Chance for you to take a look at how you want to position yourself over the coming years. But if you allow yourself to get caught up in the mental trap, in the psychology of the crowd, then you get to live in fear. And not only do you get to live in fear, but you get to let your life show up like everybody else's life. And I would submit to you that most people in our culture are not living their dream. They're not experiencing the joy or happiness that they deserve. They aren't making the difference or contributing at the level that they really want, or they're doing it, but they're not feeling the joy that comes with it. You don't want to be one of those. Step aside. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Remember, whatever you allow to penetrate it will begin to affect your life, positively or negatively. So you decide what enters in, you alone. Because otherwise, you'll find yourself in an environment like the masses, where pretty soon you'll be taught to give up, that nothing can change anyway, that the problems are permanent, that they're pervasive. And once we start to believe that, we go into learned helplessness and we don't even try anymore. You got to remember that spring always follows winter, and the day always follows the night. This too shall pass. And you also have to remember, every belief you adopt has a consequence. And buying into limitations, seeing current challenges as permanent challenges, challenges that are pervasive, will virtually guarantee you an experience of learned helplessness where you'll not only fail to tap your potential, but you'll even lose your desire to try. We've got to turn our focus away from rehashing the problems and into creating viable solutions. It's only through a solutions focus that we can create the changes we desire. Focusing on what we don't want only causes us to drive into the very walls we're trying to avoid. So beware. You're in the midst of a war, a battle between the limits of a crowd seeking the surrender of your dreams and the power of your true vision. It's a fight between those who will tell you what you cannot do and that source inside of you that knows and has always known that man is more than his environment, and that a dream backed up by an unrelenting will to attain it is truly a reality with an eminent bearing. So in the coming weeks, as you inevitably hear the rumblings of the crowd promoting all the gloom and doom, whether it's about the economy or the future or your dreams, remember the importance of standing guard at the magical door of your mind. Decide today on a plan to consistently feed your mind with quality information that can assist you in making intelligent decisions outside the realm of fear. Seek out and surround yourself with people who are producing results rather than making excuses. Your association with them will profoundly shape your destiny. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Feed and nourish your soul. Take massive action, trust your instincts, and live your dream. If you do, then I get the privilege of welcoming you to that select fellowship of achievers who direct their minds and their lives and lead by example. Hey, I got a question for you. Is there something you really want to change in your life, but you haven't been able to get yourself to do it, no matter how hard you tried or how much willpower you tried to apply? Well, if that's true, you're going to enjoy this tape, because what I want to talk with you about is what I call the master system for creating change. The 6 fundamental and simple steps that anyone can take to immediately increase the quality of their life by changing anything you need to change and doing it now, not someday. Does that sound like a big promise? Well, it really isn't a big promise at all. After all, you've been changing things your whole life. The problem is, most of us are making change without being conscious about how we're pulling it off. We don't notice what the difference is between when we make a change effectively and when we continue to struggle. I'd like to share with you in this tape those fundamentals. Now, first of all, before we even talk about making a change or how to do it, let's identify a couple of things. Number one, what kind of changes do you really want to make? And I would submit to you, there are really only 2 changes you're ever really seeking in your life. You're either trying to change the way you feel about something, or you're trying to change a behavior. Now, what does that mean? Well, what are the things you want to change how you feel about? Maybe you want to change the way you feel about yourself. Literally redefining yourself, expanding your view of who you are and what you're capable of. That's a change in how you feel. That's a change in your sense of certainty. Maybe you want to change the way you feel about something happened a long time ago in your life. Or maybe you want to change how you feel about the present, or maybe even your future. Maybe you need to change the way you feel about a loved one or the loss of someone. All of these are simply changes in emotion. And they're things that we can do literally in a moment, but most of us don't. We feel imprisoned by patterns of our past, where we feel chained to living and thinking in a way that we've done traditionally, even if it disempowers us. On the other side, many of us want to change our behaviors. Sure, we want to change. We want to stop overeating or drinking or smoking. We want to stop losing and getting angry at the drop of a hat. We want to stop being in a position where we feel like we have to operate in reaction, but instead be in control and be directing our own destinies. These 2 primary changes can be accomplished through the exact same system. We've identified the kinds of changes we want, but let's talk again and remind ourselves, why do we do anything in the first place? Much less change something. Why do we do anything? Why do we do what we're doing right now? Why are we doing those things that we want to change? And the answer is always this. Everything human beings do, they do either out of their need to avoid pain or their desire to gain pleasure. The challenge, of course, is that everyone in life has developed different strategies, different patterns for getting out of pain and into pleasure. For example, for some people have learned throughout their life, the quickest way to get out of pain is to take a drug, or to smoke, or to drink. And so they use that pattern again and again and again. They don't just do it once in a while. They do it consistently. See, anyone can change something for the moment. The kind of change I want to talk to you about in this tape is long-lasting, consistent change. That only occurs if we change the pattern that we have developed for getting out of pain and into pleasure. Some people, by the way, get out of pain not just by using drugs or alcohol, but by doing other things more unique. Maybe they watch TV as a way to distract themselves and get out of the pain of boredom or frustration or anger or hurt or sadness or feeling alone. Other people go out and learn to sing. Some people learn the way to get out of pain is go read. Other people go skydive. Who you are today is being shaped by these patterns. And if you and I want to create permanent change, lasting change, consistent change, what we must do is develop a new set of patterns of how to get out of pain and into pleasure. Think about it. If you consistently feel a negative emotion, let's say, for example, it's overwhelm, you have a pattern of doing things that makes that happen, a pattern of focusing, for example. You keep picturing all the things you have to do all at one time, and you see it as being impossible to accomplish, and so immediately you feel overwhelmed. In order to feel overwhelmed, you have to do the same pattern again and again and again. All you would have to do to change this is interrupt the pattern. That is, stop the pattern that's going on and replace it with something that's more effective. Like when you begin to feel this overwhelm, your new pattern becomes, let me focus on the most important thing that I can do right now that I know I'm in control of. And after I get done with that, then I'll look at the next thing. By developing this new pattern of chunking things down into simple bite-sized steps, you won't be overwhelmed. Now, this sounds so simplistic. You say, well, then why don't I do it? Because there is a specific syntax of change. I can tell you myself, for more than a decade now, I've pursued the best technologies for creating change. What is a technology? It's a specific way of consistently producing a result. So I study things like Gestalt therapy, neurolinguistic programming, Ericksonian hypnosis, and these were some of the cutting-edge technologies in the nation, ways to create change more rapidly than anything I'd ever seen before. I became so proficient at these skills that I was able to immediately start helping other people, and it became my life's work. I literally found that if I put myself on the line and I applied these technologies, there was very little I couldn't help people to change, and I got excited about it. I became an evangelist, basically. But there were those times when a change did not stick, where I'd made a shift with someone and I helped them to make a difference, but it didn't last. And it bugged me. Even though it was such a small percentage, it really drove me crazy, and it made me want to say, okay, what isn't working here? And gradually I began to realize it wasn't the technology, it was the way it was being applied. And I also began to wonder, how come I'm so successful? I mean, after all, lots of other people know these same technologies. How come they're not getting the same results for people as I'm getting? And as I began to look even further, I said, well, look at all the people out there, all the therapists that are using all kinds of different approaches to helping people, and all of them work some of the time. The whole science of NEC, neuroassociative conditioning, that I've developed really came out of my asking two basic fundamental questions. My brain began to think, if all these different forms of therapy can help people to make changes, and they can do it successfully, and all kinds do work, we have to agree, right? Everything from something as outrageous as primal scream therapy, rebirthing, to traditional Freudian approaches, non-directive approaches, rational emotive therapy. I mean, we could go on and on. They all work some of the time. So my question became, what do they have in common when they're all working? And secondly, what are they all missing when they fail to make the change? I mean, why is it that sometimes a person will walk in and see a therapist for one session or two or four or five and get the thing handled, and another they'll go for 7 years? What is the difference? Because the truth is, change happens in a moment, like that. It doesn't take 10 years to make a change. It literally happens in a moment, but the problem is that most of us in life take us 7 years to get ourselves to the point where we finally make the decision to make the shift. So how do we make the change happen more quickly? And as I began to seek this out, several things became clear. The first thing I noted was that change only happens when we change what we link to a given situation in our nervous system, specifically when we change our neuroassociations. In other words, as long as you're trying to diet, but dieting means pain to you, it is never going to last. The change is not going to be one that's long term. The only way that you can ever lose weight is if you pick those foods that right now you're addicted to, that are fatty or that are keeping you fat, that are polluting your system, and you learn to associate massive pain to them to the point you never even consider them again. If you link that much pain to them, you will not touch them again. But this cannot be an intellectual change. You probably know you shouldn't eat certain foods. You know they're fatty, but you still do it. The reason you still do it is because you still link in your gut, in your neuroassociations, that this food equals pleasure. So those shifts have to occur. And likewise, if a person has been through some horrible emotional event, they've been physically abused, they've been raped, the only way that that experience can be handled is if we change the sensations we link to it. That is, if that person was raped, as long as they feel helpless, as long as they feel tarnished by the experience, as long as they feel like the problem is permanent, and as long as the meaning is that their world is over, then they're going to be in pain. The only way to help this person to change is to change the meaning, change the sensations linked to it, so that now that situation becomes nothing but a powerful commitment that never again will this happen to this woman or this man or anybody else who they can have a chance to influence in a positive way. It becomes a drive. It becomes a positive set of sensations, even though it was a negative experience. This is the change that has to occur in human behavior, a change in what we link pain and pleasure to. So if it's really this simple, why don't we just change? Why don't we just do it right now? Good question. maybe it's time we started considering how we could do it. Let me offer you the best that I've learned, analyzing all the therapies that I've done for people for the last 10 years, looking at the best therapists, the best change artists, if you will, that I've ever met in my lifetime, and looking at the times when it didn't work for those people, as well as looking at therapists that I thought were terrible. People who could not create a change in anybody. I had people coming back week after week after week and never seeing any real measurable progress. Out of it all, I've synthesized what I believe are the 6 master steps to creating any form of change. And let me clarify. These are the 6 giant steps you'll take, and you can use any form of technology. You can use something great like neurolinguistic programming. You can use Gestalt therapy. You can use Primal Scream. You can use anything you want. Once you understand these 6 steps, you can put them within the 6 steps. In fact, as they start to go through these 6, think right now, before we even begin, what is a change that you're committed to making happen once and for all? Something you've been putting off, something you haven't followed through on. And I'd say go through the 6 steps, take some notes. And if you're in the car, take them in your head and listen to this tape again and write down the notes and make sure these 6 steps are written in front of you somewhere and you begin to apply them in a very real and measured way. Here is step number 1 to changing anything in your life, whether it's an emotional pattern you want to shift or a behavior. And I have to warn you, it is so simple, it's a joke, but most people never do it. And it is the first step to change, and that is simply this. Decide what do you want and what's preventing you from getting it. Again, decide what is it that you really want and what's preventing you from getting it right now. Now, again, this sounds so 3rd grade, doesn't it? But I can tell you, having worked with literally hundreds of thousands of people, that the first thing people focus on when they come to see you and they want you to make a change, whether it be in a seminar, one-on-one, or any venue, they almost always come up and tell me what they don't want, not what they do want. I don't want to smoke anymore. I don't want to feel like hell anymore. I don't want to feel depressed. I want to change this. But rarely do they know exactly what they want to change to. When I say, what do you want to change to? They say, well, I don't know, I just want to feel better. That's too general. You and I have to remember our brain is the ultimate computer. If we give it precise instructions, it'll follow through for us. But we've got to know exactly what we want, and that requires making a decision. And once again, most people in life have not used their decision muscles in so long that they got wimpy muscles. They have a hard time deciding what they're going to order for dinner, much less making a change. But you must start here. If you are not making progress, and you're not achieving what you want, I can guarantee you there's an area you can enhance, and that is the clarity you have as to what it is you truly want. And are you clear on what's stopping you? And the answer, you might say, well, I don't know what's stopping me. That's the problem. Yes, you do know. That false belief that you don't know what's holding you back is a belief system that keeps you from changing. From this day forward, I want to challenge you to operate from a brand new belief system, and that is you always know what's holding you back, and the minute you become aware of it, you can change it. And I can tell you in advance what it is. What's always holding you back is you're linking more pain at some level of your consciousness to changing than staying the way you are. At some level, you fear the change. Why? Because we human beings have this desperate need for certainty. Because when we're uncertain, which is making a change and tends to make us very uncertain, we get very fearful. Because, see, uncertainty means you might experience even more pain. See, that's a big challenge. And the only way that we're going to get ourselves to the point of really being able to accomplish what we want in our lives then is to develop such a clear idea of what we want that it's compelling, that it will drive us, that we'll have a new sense that if we make a change, we're going to have incredible pleasure in our lives. See, we don't want to change just to avoid the pain. We want to change so that we get more juice in our lives. So what is a change you want in your life? And then once you decide what the change is, decide this. What do you want to change to? What do you really want? And, again, what's preventing you from getting it? It's either a belief or a negative feeling or association or a fear about what that change might bring, a sense of uncertainty. Think right now of something you want to change in your life, something that's very important to change, and get very clear on what do you want to change to. Instead of saying, I want to stop smoking, what do you want to do instead? Who do you want to be instead? How do you want to live instead? Define it very clearly. And then jot down what up until now, in fact, this might be a good way of wording this from now on. Up until now, what has prevented you from taking the action necessary to make this change? Answer that question right now. Stop the tape and do step 1. I assume that you went and did the exercise. I'm sure you're not continuing to listen to this without taking the time to do this, are you? Please take the time. Don't just listen passively. Otherwise, you'll be doing what you've always done in the past. Decide. Make a decision of how you want it to be. Now, for those of you who did the exercise, ignore the preceding announcement. After you've gotten absolutely clear about what it is you really want, you know it's prevented you, now we go to step number 2. And step number 2 is the number one reason why most people who try to help people to change fail or take years to make a change. Because again, change happens in a moment. The key is getting ourselves to make that moment happen now. And the way we do that is through step number 2, and that is get leverage on yourself. What do I mean by this? I mean you and I have to shift that basic pattern that keeps us from being able to change our lives. And that basic pattern is simply this. If you aren't changing anything, it's simply because you link more pain to changing than staying the way you are. Or you don't link enough pleasure to the idea of changing. It's not compelling enough. So we must gear up and accelerate the amount of pain we link to our present behavior or emotion, the one we want to change. We got to make it so painful that change becomes an absolute must. Not a should, not a could, not an ought to, an absolute must. Invariably, when I talk to people, they say things like, well, I really should lose weight. I really should, not be so abusive to my children verbally. I really should go out and try and start a new business. But see, you can sit there and should all over yourself and nothing's ever going to change. You've got to make it a must. Now, how do you do that? Well, the first step is realizing, having the awareness that the only thing stopping you from changing is the fact that you honestly have mixed emotions about the whole idea. After all, you might think in your head, well, what if I go out there and I try to stop smoking and I actually quit and go through all the pain it would take to stop smoking and then I die of cancer anyway? Gosh, I might go through all the pain and still have pain. Or what if I go out there and I really go on a diet and I still don't lose the weight? Or I gain it back? Why even try? It's too painful. Why even begin the process? These mixed emotions, these mixed neuroassociations are what keep us from changing. We have to remember that the ability to change is not even a question. Your capability to change, there's no doubt right now you could stop smoking. What do you got to do? Just not put that thing up to your lips. It's not like something that attacks you. You do it. If you're overweight, you're doing it to yourself. If you're getting angry all the time, you're doing it to yourself. If you're out of control in any area of your life, you're doing it to yourself, and you could change it right now, this moment, if you just decided to and cut off any other possibility. But most of us don't. And we don't because we don't realize that change is not a matter of capability. It's merely a matter of motivation. See, if I put a gun to your head and said, you better get out of that depressed state and start smiling and laughing right now and convince me that you got a lot to live for, I'd be willing to bet that you probably would be able to respond and get yourself in a good state. Why? Because I'd have what you call massive leverage, where all of a sudden your brain would think, not changing is too painful. I got to change quickly. We can always change. What we're missing is the leverage. If you go to see a therapist, and you see them again and again and again and again on the same exact issue, why? Why would you not make the change? Because you don't have enough leverage. Maybe you've even actually learned to appreciate the therapist and they're your friend. That's wonderful. But now what may be happening is you may have leverage to stay the way you are because after all, you want to continue to have this wonderful friend. We call this secondary gain, where all of a sudden somebody may get injured, for example. In the beginning, getting well is really important. But when they got injured, something else happened. People around them really started expressing their love for them on a regular basis. They started doing things for them that they never did before. And all of a sudden, this person was receiving all this extra attention and this caring. Consciously, they want to get well, but unconsciously, their brain's saying, this is a pretty good deal. And so they have mixed emotions, and then the doctor can't figure out what's the matter with them. Why doesn't the body heal? Or it is healed, but they still seem to have the symptoms. Why? Because a lack of change always comes back to mixed neuroassociations. How do we change this? The answer is obvious. We must get ourselves to the point where we feel so excited, so turned on, so compelled about our new change, the thing we're going to change to, that we want it more than anything else on earth. And all we've got to do that is make it real. Find somebody who's living in a better way. Find somebody who has the kind of body that you want. Find somebody who can dance or move. Find somebody who's a role model, who inspires you, who's living the change that you want to have. That's the first element. And secondly, get yourself to link so much pain to not changing that you have to change right now. And you can do that by asking pain-associating questions. Questions like, what am I missing out on right now in my life because I haven't made this change? What have I already missed out on? And then as you begin to get associated to those feelings, when you begin to get yourself to a point where your brain says, I've had it, never again, it's in that moment that your life changes. And that is your step 2. Let's do it right now. That very same change you want to make. And the thing that was preventing you, you've got to link now. Stop and think about the pain, what you've missed out on, what you've ripped yourself off of by not following through, the pain you'll have in the future if you don't change, the pain you have presently. You've got to make it urgent to change, not someday, but right now, and make it real. And then when you're done with that, you've got to think about, if you change, what will you get instead? What will be the pleasure? And make that real. Visualize it, imagine it, make it so compelling. Take a moment, do it with pencil and paper if you can right now, and then begin to focus in your mind until you clearly know that change is a must. Again, I hope you're doing this exercise right now. You're not just playing the tape. Okay, welcome back. So we've done step 1. What is it? We're absolutely clear on what we really want. Not just what we want to change, but what do we really want in our lives and what's prevented us up until now to make that change. 2, we now have massive leverage. We know that we can't go another day. We've hit emotional threshold. Not one more day living this way, not one more day with this behavior, not one more day of feeling depressed, not one more day of whatever it is you want to change. And we know how compelling and exciting it's going to be to live life with the new change. Well, let me tell you something. I hope you remember this the rest of your life. 80% of making a change is having a strong enough why. 20% is knowing how to do it. How is easy. There's so many ways to change. It's a joke. But you got to get enough reasons, compelling reasons. That's the leverage. Now, if we know what we want, if we got ourselves in a position where we got massive leverage, we still could have a problem. And the problem is there are a lot of people out there that know what they want and they're driven. They've got to change, but they keep doing the same things again and again and again and again. You know, there was a definition of insanity that was given years ago, and the definition was doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm sure you've seen a fly on a window trying to get out. You know, it searches for a way out of the room and it heads in the direction of the light. Well, sure enough, it hits the glass. What does it do? It hits it again, hits it again, hits it again. Some flies never figure it out. They just keep doing the same things and they end up dying in the room. The only way you can change, even with all your motivation and drive, is you must do step number 3. You must interrupt your old pattern. You must interrupt the pattern that is holding you back, whatever it is. I don't care if it's the pattern of every time you're stressed reaching for food or reaching for a cigarette or alcohol, or if it's the pattern of yelling at people because you feel frustrated inside. You must interrupt it just for the moment. You don't even have to stop it, but you've got to interrupt it, because when we interrupt the pattern, we render it useless. We don't want to keep on doing the same thing where now you must change, but you keep going out there and trying the same approach over and over and over again. It's not going to work. It's like the guy that goes out looking for his keys. He lost his keys. He doesn't know where they are. Have you ever done this? And you go running around and you check in this one drawer. You check the whole drawer, they're not there. Then you go to the next spot in the room, then the next. Then you go back out to the car. You check the floor of the car. You check the seats. You check the ignition. You come back in the house and you've checked everywhere you can think. So what do? You go back and check the drawer again. How crazy. What do you think is going to happen? It's suddenly going to appear in the drawer? See, it makes no sense to do the same things over and over and over again and expect a different result. We've got to interrupt the pattern. And you know what? There's so many easy ways to do it. Interrupting a pattern merely requires you do something out of the ordinary. You do something unexpected to yourself or to the person you're trying to break the pattern of. See, I'll give you an example. Have you ever been in a situation where you're so caught up in a conversation, it's like super important to you, you're totally immersed, and then somebody comes by over here from the right-hand side of you and asks you this stupid question that has nothing to do with anything you're talking about. And you go, what? What are you talking about? And you have to think for a minute to answer their question because it makes no sense to you. And you finally answer their question, you get it all settled, you come back to your conversation, and what happened? You can't even remember what you were talking about, even though it was important to you. See, that's a classic example of having your pattern interrupted. And you know what? The same thing happens with our emotions. We can be in a really lousy state, maybe be in a fight with somebody, but have them all of a sudden do something that cracks us up. Have you ever had that experience? Now, I know it doesn't happen all the time because you're usually so caught up in your pattern. But if something weird, outrageous, or funny enough happens, have you ever been caught up in an argument and then all of a sudden you guys say something to each other and one of you starts to crack up? It destroys the whole thing. You can't stay mad. Same thing happens with depression. Same thing happens with virtually every area of our lives. The problem is that very rarely do these things happen because we are not deliberate in our approach to breaking patterns. By the way, the metaphor I've shared with people for years about breaking patterns is very simply this. If you're depressed, you have to run a certain pattern. You have to put your shoulders in a certain way, open them down. You got to put your eyes down. You got to breathe a certain way. You got to picture in your mind the worst possible scenarios that you think have happened or will happen in the future. You got to talk to yourself in a lousy way. That requires a lot of work. It's not easy, and it's a pattern you've developed. But if in the middle of doing that, all of a sudden you break the pattern, you interrupt it by suddenly grinning from ear to ear, breathing fully. If you do anything to break that pattern, anything weird or outrageous or even stupid, you will absolutely change your state. What happens if you put your shoulders back up? You breathe. You put a big, stupid, silly grin on your face. You raise your hands above your head and clap them together and say, "Thank God my feet don't stink today." Or some other stupid thing. As ridiculous and inane as this sounds, it works because it breaks your pattern. Now, it only works for a moment. And I understand that, but that's only step 3, remember. We got 6 steps here. We've got to interrupt the pattern. And if we keep interrupting it, though, if you keep taking a record, which is nothing but a pattern, think of it. If we took out a compact disc or a record, the only reason you hear that same music, get those same feelings, is because there's a pattern in that record. But if I take that record out one day and I take that needle and I go across that record back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I keep breaking all those patterns, pretty soon if I do that enough times, that record will never play the same way again. Now, if I only put one scratch across it, it'll just skip a beat, but the basic pattern is still there. So if we want to change our behavior, we got to know, what do we want? What's preventing us? We got to get leverage where we must change, and then we've got to interrupt the pattern and do it many different times. We can do it with what we call a visual scramble technique. Many of you are familiar with this. That's where you imagine something that's been bugging you. But remember, you first got clear what you want instead. You know you're committed to changing. Then what do? You close your eyes. Try it now, as long as you're not driving. Think of something that you really are committed to changing. Think of some element of that. Something you really want instead. What do you want to change to? Make sure you know that you're committed to changing this now. All of your being, there's no part of you that has mixed emotions. And then all you've got to do now is imagine that situation, that memory you have some negative feelings towards, whatever it was, and just see it like a normal movie. And then what? Simply run it backwards as fast as you can to the beginning. Then run it forwards, then backwards, then forwards, then backwards. If people were saying things that bothered you, make their nose big like Pinocchio, make their ears big like Dumbo, play some weird cartoon music, run it forwards and backwards. You know this technique, don't you? Run it back and forth, at least 20 times. Every time, change the colors of everything in there. Put rainbow colors in everybody's faces. Make it the most bizarre and weird cartoon and scramble it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. What you're doing is you're taking this memory and you're scratching it up a million different ways. If you do it faster and faster, the key here is speed. The key is to put a big grin on your face while you're doing it. If you're not smiling, put a smile on your face. Make it weird, make it bizarre. Scramble the sensations. Again, 20, 25 times of this, you will not feel the same way again. You will not get back in that angry state. You will not get back in that depressed state if you do it strongly enough. Now realize the scramble is only one way to break a pattern. If you find yourself consistently doing something like overeating, and your way of trying to change this is to say, well, I better stop doing this because it makes me feel bad, and I know I shouldn't do this because then I get fat. That's not going to do it. Your brain's going to go, give me the food, because you link too much pleasure to that food. You want to do it, you got to do something outrageous. You got to break the pattern. Next time you find yourself overeating and you're in a public restaurant, jump up out of your seat, point down at your own chair and scream, "Pig!" And I promise you, if you do that 2 or 3 times in a public place, you'll never do it again. You won't overeat. I say this only with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek. The point is, the more outrageous your pattern up, the more effective it will be. But we've got to break the pattern. So now that we've gone through step 3, you've got to interrupt your pattern. The question is, how? And remember, the best way to interrupt a pattern is to be outrageous, to do something a person does not expect, to do something that really radically changes your own state. So what I want you to do is stop the tape and write down a bunch of bizarre ideas. Come up with at least 10 brainstorm ideas on how to break the pattern of feeling depressed that you had, or being angry, or feeling overwhelmed. What could you picture when you start to feel overwhelmed that would crack you up? What could you say to yourself? What could you do with your body? What could you do if you're in a position of overeating or drinking or smoking to interrupt the pattern in a humorous way, a funny way, something that would jar you out of that pattern and maybe even make you smile or make you laugh? Turn off the tape right now. I know you don't know all the answers, but write down the best ones you can come up with right now. Great, welcome back. Now, on the list you come up with, what are the top 3 best ways to break your pattern? Circle those and make sure you use them. And by the way, if you're not satisfied with the ways you've come up with to break those patterns, find somebody who is now no longer overeating, no longer drinking, no longer getting depressed, and find out what do they do instead. And find out how did they break their pattern, and use the same tool. Once you interrupt the pattern, though, your job is not done. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make. Some people actually get to the point of interrupting their pattern. They stop the smoking, they stop the overeating pattern for a short period of time, but that's a critical moment. Now that you've broken the pattern, you've got to move in with step number 4, and that is create an empowering alternative. We must preserve the intention of our old behavior. The reason you smoked was not to kill yourself. You smoked because it gave you something. It gave you a way to get out of boredom, or it gave you something to do with your hands, or it gave you a way to relax because when you smoked you took deep breaths slowly, or you used it to give yourself a reward or as an excuse to get out of the room. You need to find a new pattern that'll give you the same benefits without the negative side effects. This is a must to having long-term change. Okay, let's do step number 4 together. What's the alternative now? If you're not going to get upset and angry, if you're not going to get depressed, if you're not going to overeat, you're not going to drink, what are you going to do instead to change your emotional states? Sit down and brainstorm a whole series of ways that you can get yourself out of pain and into feeling good right now, something you could do anywhere. Take a moment now and make your list. Welcome back again. I hope you enjoy your list. Now what you should do is carry it with you and practice it. Make it like a menu. So from now on, when you don't feel good, pull out your menu and say, okay, here are all the ways I can make myself feel good, instead of the old ways I used to do that were destructive. And again, find a role model. If you don't like your ways, find somebody else who does something instead of drinking or smoking, and find out what they do instead to make themselves feel good. Use their techniques. Remember the power of role modeling. Let's go on to step number 5. And that is, you must now condition your new pattern until it remains consistent. Conditioning is the key. As long as we're using willpower to try and enforce a new pattern, it's not going to last. We've got to condition ourselves so that now that we have this new pattern, this new way to feel good, we've got to make sure that our brain always goes there. I mean, the best example I can give you is, I know recently I was really busy, and I tend when I'm at home to get on the freeway going towards San Diego, because that's the direction I had about 90% of the time. Well, I was caught up on the phone in a conversation. I needed to go a different direction. But I'm so conditioned to go to San Diego that unconsciously I got on the freeway and I was down about a mile before I realized what I'd done. Have you ever been in that place? That's classic conditioning. You got to remember that whatever we focus on again and again in our mind, whatever we reinforce, will eventually become conditioned within us. Conditioning is basic. Do something over and over and over again with enough emotional intensity and feeling, and it will become conditioned. So you and I need to remember that if we rehearse something over and over again, we're laying the neurological connections in our mind each time we do it. Our mind cannot tell the difference between something we vividly imagine and something we actually experience. Remember, every time you use your new pattern, you will be reinforcing this new neurological connection in your mind, and pretty soon this will be the dominant pattern of your life. Pretty soon when you get on the freeway of your emotion, you'll only go in one direction, and that's the positive direction. Right now, write down a couple things you can do to make sure that you stick to this new alternative, that it becomes conditioned. Let's go to final step number 6. With these first 5 steps, what will you've accomplished? You will have interrupted a pattern that didn't work, and you will replace it with a new empowering pattern and conditioned it so that now you feel certain it's going to work. But how are you going to know for sure? The answer is, step 6, you got to test it. And the best way to test it is use a technique that they taught in neurolinguistics, and that's called a future pace. That's where you just sit down, you close your eyes, and you imagine that situation where you wanted to make the change, where you think you have made a change, and you notice how you react. For example, if one of the changes you want to make was not feeling rejected, if in the past every time your boss raised their voice you felt destroyed, All you got to do now to see if it works is test it. Close your eyes and imagine your boss being intense with you and notice how you feel. Do you feel resourceful? Do you feel the way you've conditioned yourself, or do you feel the old way? If you feel the old way, you got to recycle. Either you haven't conditioned things enough, or your empowering alternative is not strong enough, or you didn't really break the pattern, or you don't have enough leverage, or you're not really clear on what you want. Just recycle the 6 steps until you produce the result you're committed to. And part of testing is making sure that if you make this change, that it's going to be ecological. The study of ecology really is the study of consequences. So what you've really got to do is just think, look back. You need to ask yourself, by making this change, will my whole life be enhanced? Will any area of my life be disturbed by this change? Will it hurt my career or help it? And as long as you note that the changes you're making are consistent with your own personal values and they support the people around you, then your test will be complete. You can live by this new pattern and you will have created the change that you've been pursuing. So go out in the next 30 days and have a ball. Change anything you want to change. Anything you don't like, change it. Make your world the way you want it. Remember, you have the power to shape your destiny. Take control now. And most importantly, have fun. Enjoy the process of making change. The biggest mistake people make is they think change has to be painful. If you break your own patterns in fun ways, you can make the next 30 days the most enjoyable changes you've ever made. Right now, there's a pattern of change that's occurring throughout the industrialized world that doesn't get much press. We're just starting to see it in our newspapers and our magazines, but it's a pattern. It's a distinction. It's a change that's going to affect every aspect of your personal and professional life. And if we fail to anticipate this change, we're going to experience pain. And if we do anticipate it, we can take advantage. We can have an edge. We can create a greater quality of life than we ever have before. This pattern of change, you wonder what it is. Well, I'm not going to tell you just yet. You got to think as usual and stay with me a little bit here. I will tell you this, though. This simple pattern of change that's happening throughout the industrialized world that I want to talk with you about, there is a danger that when I talk with you about it, that you'll see it as something that's happening to someone else, that you'll see it as being something that has nothing to do with your personal life because, after all, nothing like this has ever happened to you in the past. If there's one thing that you and I have to know about the 21st century, it's that it will be nothing like the 20th century. That what has been is not what will be. That the process of change, as we know it, has changed radically. We've always had change. But what we're well aware of now, and it's almost a cliche to even say it, is that what's different about change today is it's happening more rapidly than ever before, but also changes are happening in a discontinuous fashion. Meaning, we used to have continuous change. You could say, well, things are going to get better. We know what change is going to be. We may not know the details, but we know that the next generation is going to be better off than this generation. We know that whatever we're doing here in our business, we're just going to do it better next year. Well, that's not necessarily true anymore. Change today can happen instantaneously in a way that we cannot anticipate, or at least have not anticipated before. Where suddenly we're not doing it better, we're doing something completely different at this company. Overnight, when you have something like the Soviet Union disappear, when a wall comes down in Germany, when suddenly corporations like IBM will come out and say, we're going to lay off 150,000 workers in less than 2 years, a company that always promised permanent employment and has been known as the international company of example, when all these things happen that rapidly, literally overnight, these are not continuous change. These are not changes we would anticipate. These are discontinuous change. So what I'm trying to say to you is, before I talk to you about this simple pattern, this affects you personally. This is going to affect you. If it isn't affecting you now, it's going to affect you in the near future. It'll affect you whether you own your own company, whether you're an executive for a corporation, whether you're just entering the workforce, or if you're never even planning on working and you're a homemaker, because it's going to affect the structure of how your family even functions. So what the heck am I talking about here? What I'm speaking to you about is the radical changes that we're seeing in the structure of work in industrialized societies. What the heck does that mean? Well, you and I have lived with a certain set of assumptions, at least most of us in industrialized countries have up until now. And that was that, hey, half of your life, basically, your adult life, you were going to drive someplace, you were going to go to work at that location. If you really did work hard and you really added value, you would continue to work for that company unless you chose to leave. And if the company got into trouble, at the very worst, You would have experience at this corporation that would be marketable to go to work for somebody else. And sure enough, you planned your life based around that. Because the structure of how we work determines dinner times, determines when you're going to see your children. It determines to a great extent how you think about your future, what you think is possible, what you think is impossible. So what's changed? You say, I'm still going to the same job. I'm still doing the same thing. Well, one thing that's changed is the future. Ask any baby buster, those young people now coming out of college who've gone and lived by the rules. What have they done? They went out and they got the education, right? Maybe a great education, spent a fortune to get the education, invested their lives, their time, their energy. They're having a hard time getting a job. They don't understand. Just a few years ago, if you did all these right things, you could get a great job with a great corporation, right? If you studied to get an MBA, you certainly would get a job on Wall Street. Wall Street was coming up and courting these young men and women. It's not happening in that environment or virtually any other environment. We're finding young people who are incredibly well educated who are going to work in retail outlets as salespeople for minimum wage. It's an amazing environment. I'm sure you're seeing it around where you are. You might say, well, I don't care. I'm not a baby buster. Well, you should care because they're a major part of our society. Many of them are getting there 28, 29, almost 30 years old, and they still haven't found, many of them, what their career is, what their compelling future is, where they can invest themselves, their resources, their imagination, their creativity. They want to enhance our society. Instead, many are getting frustrated and overwhelmed. Not all, but many. And by the way, it's no different for you if you are a baby boomer. The only difference is you were around earlier when there was a boom going on. You were around when our society was a bit different, and you got probably a great job, a great career. But you may have a bit of concern about this thing called downsizing, or right-sizing as they now call it. Why aren't these jobs available? Because in the last 10 years, the latest statistics show we've lost almost 4 million jobs in less than 10 years. What's happening is these companies, in an effort to try and compete, are changing the structure of corporations and therefore the number of jobs and the types of jobs that are available. This has changed the way people think about their future. It even changes the way some people look at their present. You say, well, but this is a temporary thing. Things are tight right now. No, they're not. They're booming. Things are booming right now. Corporations, many of them are growing and expanding. New industries are starting up. Some people say, well, when is it going to return to normal? No. This is normal. This is the new status quo, continuous change with corporations and organizations trying to reorganize so they can compete more intensely in a world market. And the impact of their decision-making is changing the structure of work. You say, what do you mean about the structure of work? So far, you just talked about unemployment. Well, here's what's really changing. Companies are beginning to realize that the structure of a company, and if you're an executive, you certainly know this and are probably already addressing it, that you want to have a company that is flexible, that can change quickly and radically to meet the changing desires, modes, and needs of today's consumer, and a company that's competing on a world scale. In order to do that, they're trying to make sure they have the smallest amount of cost, and they started something called outsourcing. What's outsourcing? They're saying, why should we do our own accounting? Let's have an outside firm do that. Why should we employ somebody to stock all of our materials? Let's have the company that's selling us this stuff keep things in stock and manage it. And as a result, you're seeing these big corporations shrinking, and lots of small businesses are starting up. Many small businesses. In fact, during the 1980s, we saw a huge shrinkage in Fortune 500 America. But what we saw grow faster than anything in history is women-owned businesses, small entrepreneurship started by women. Now, what does that mean? Why is this happening? And what is the impact upon your life? Well, the first thing it does, it destabilizes the one area of your life most people take for granted. We have all these assumptions. Well, I know what work is, and I know how I'm going to work, and I know how it's going to happen, and I'm going to have this one employer. No, you're going to have multiple employers, most people. In fact, for most countries, it now appears if the momentum continues in the direction it's going, and there's no reason for it not to, as you'll see in a moment as I explain to you what the force is that's causing this change. But if it continues to move in this direction, approximately half of our population will be living outside what we currently call the norm of employment, called full-time employment. Half the people will be part of outsourcing. Half the people will have part-time employment or multiple employers. That's an amazing change. Think about what that will do to your family life. Think about what that does to your time. Think about what that does to your sense of certainty about the future. Think about what that demands from you in terms of your ability to create quality so you can continue to have the same customer as an employer. Pretty soon your employer becomes your customer if you work for someone else in any way, shape, or form. And if you have your own business, it means you're looking at running your business differently, where you're more flexible, where you can hire somebody for the short term and then let them go as you make a change in the way you run your business without upsetting anyone, without creating a bunch of economic challenges, giving you the flexibility and power to meet the marketplace. Now, what is causing this change? Why are so many people now part-time employed? Is it because there just aren't the jobs? No, that's not the reason. The reason is we're running into 3 or 4 new factors that are part of our world society that are causing businesses to make changes. The first one is technology. Recall we already said that change has always occurred, but it's happening more rapidly now than ever before, and a major source of the speed of change is technology. Because number one, it's changing the way companies operate, because corporations are finding that through new machines, new technology, new innovations, they can now get the same job done or a better job done with no human beings. They can eliminate dozens or sometimes hundreds of jobs. This has happened for major corporations and their accounting departments. Just imagine a bank that had multiple outlets and the hundreds of accountants they used to have versus the dozens that they now have to get the same job done, where any executive can get the information they need at their fingertips at almost the speed of light. This has also happened in industries as simple as farming. We used to have 30 million farmers in this country who helped us to feed 100 million people. That was at the turn of the century. Today, we have 1% of those farmers. We have 300,000 farmers in the entire nation, and they feed 300 million people because of technology. Not only everybody in this nation, but we feed people overseas as well. So technology is changing the pace of change, and it's making businesses have to change more rapidly. Because if your competition begins to get this kind of technology, he or she can leave you in the dust. So all of a sudden, you can't be like Henry Ford, where he made one product, and the life cycle of that product was a generation. The Model T was sold to a generation. Today, the product life cycle of any product has shrunk down to as little as 6 months to a year and a half. Many companies create products now knowing that it's only going to last in the marketplace for as little as 6 to 9 months. Can you imagine? Now, if that's true of a product, you can imagine what that means to jobs. If we're only going to make that product for that period of time, unless the person in the job has multiple skills, we're going to have to find somebody else to do what we're going to make now, or what we're going to sell now, or what we're going to market now. This technology is changing the way businesses operate. And the other factor is technology is changing the way we work, because we no longer have to go to one central place to work. Technology now allows people to live virtually wherever they want and do much of their business. Because much of the business of the information society is manipulating ideas or words or sounds or images on computers or other forms of systems, or it's negotiations, it's communication through telephones. We're in a situation today between computers and faxes and modems. We're in a position where many people can choose to live virtually anywhere, and it totally changes their idea of the workplace, the work environment, where they can do business, how many countries they can do business in, which brings up the next major factor that's affecting the pace of change and therefore your work life, and that is competition. Because of technology, we truly have a competitive world, because people now from virtually anywhere in the world can interact, they can do business, they can make offers, they can come up with concepts, they can synergize between one another. This is creating a world where there are so many people participating and producing products and services that there's been a huge change in the balance between supply and demand. I mean, think about it. This generation has learned a different lesson than previous generations about buying products and services, and they're affecting the workplace. This generation has learned that there is no scarcity of products, that there are lots of products out there, that if you want a fax machine, there are multiple numbers of fax machines out there, that you can kind of pick and choose what you want. There is so much competition out there that it's making every business have to work harder to be more profitable. They have to add more value for less money. And as a result, that's why many of them have turned to downsizing or resizing to try and figure out how to compete. But downsizing and resizing is not the answer, as we're going to find out here. The third factor that's going to shape the way businesses are conducted, and therefore the structure of your future work, is demographics and psychographics. What the heck does that mean? Well, if an economy is driven by consumers, and what consumers spend money on determines where businesses put their attention, who gets employed and who doesn't, then we have to look at who are the major consumers of our economy. In fact, who's the major person shaping our society? Well, there was a generation that has controlled and directed our society for years, and they were the major purchaser of products and services up until fairly recently. And that generation was the World War II generation. Now, if you look at this generation, they went through a depression where they felt like they had almost nothing, scarcity, and then they went through a war. And by the way, when somebody said, hey, we're going to go to war, they didn't say why. They reported immediately. Johnny come marching home type of an attitude, right, from a previous war, and they went right out immediately, and they knew the world was black and white. It was clear who was the good guy, who was the bad guy, and if you played by the rules and you respected authority and did the right thing, you'd come back a hero, and they did. And these people, when they came back and they finally wanted to have some pleasure, they wanted a better quality of life, some of the technology created options, and new technology provided ways for them to have a better life with less pain. And they moved to things called suburbs, a new development, and they wanted to purchase items, things like refrigerators. And in those days, getting a refrigerator was an exciting thing. Getting a television was an exciting thing. Think about that process. They wanted their kids to grow up and have all this great pleasure. And so they raised their children with a different set of values in some cases. In many cases, they taught their kid a different lesson. They taught their kid that you're special. You're unique. You know what? I want you to be happy. Your happiness is the most important thing. If they didn't say it verbally, they said it by their actions. If a young person from World War II generation broke the rules, they knew they were going to get pain for it. But if this baby boom generation, the generation that came out of this group, the generation that's now starting to be the largest consumer base in the history of Western civilization, this mass number of births that came from these people who came back from World War II, they wanted pleasure, they had kids. These kids learned not to go out there and work 7 days a week and work really hard. They didn't learn to take care of everybody else first. What many of them learned was, your happiness is the most important thing in life. I want you to be happy. I want you to have a better life than I'm happy. You're going to be more intelligent. You're going to go to school. You're going to get an education. These people grew up with a different environment, and they learned that breaking the rules could be fun. Because after all, guys like Dr. Spock entered in and said, hey, if your kid breaks the rules, you got to let him kind of explore and discover himself. A little different society began to be shaped. And what happened is we developed a culture of people that learned to break the rules and learned it could actually be enjoyable to break the rules. You might create an identity by breaking the rules. These people, when drugs were available, and they, of course, didn't know the consequences, of course they'd be willing to use a drug. Why wouldn't you? It's a way to be happy. One of the things they were programmed to do. If they did go to war, did they have a real clear idea of why they were there? Was there clear authority? Was it clear who the good guy was and who the bad guy was? The answer is no. These people went into an environment where they were not clear at all, where they might be sitting in a rice paddy next to a guy smoking a joint, where they weren't sure why they were even there. They had not been raised to have an ideology that was singular and focused. And sure enough, one day, let's say somebody's out there and he likes children, and he's there with his buddy doing a patrol, and he finds this little boy. He starts talking to him. Of course, he can't speak his language, but he thinks he's cute, and he turns around to walk away, and the little boy pulls out a machine gun and blows away his best friend. And in an effort to save his own life, he turns and pulls his machine gun and blows the young child away. What do you think that does to a generation? What did it do to you if you were part of that generation? And by the way, when these people finally did come home, did they win? Did they have parades celebrating? No, they were called baby killers. Many people spit on them. What do you think that did to them? While they're gone, their heroes were killed. A Kennedy, a king. The President of the United States said that he was leaving office, but he was not a crook. This was a bit confusing for a few people. What did this generation learn? What many people in this generation learned was loyalty to anything can get you killed for no good reason. In fact, some songs with similar verses actually became very popular. Think about it. How does this affect today's society? Well, the leading edge of this group of people we now call baby boomers are taking over our culture. Number one, they have a bit of money to spend. They're now at the leading edge 48 years old. At the lower end, they're around 32, 33, 34 years old. These people have begun to succeed. They have capital, and they're going to make a decision, but they don't make it the same way as past consumers. Number one, they know there's an unlimited supply. They've learned that they can have whatever they want. And they don't just want a product. They want a product that meets their individual needs. They want a product with their name on it. World War II generation had 3 flavors of ice cream: strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla. How many are there now? God only knows. Right? Ben and Jerry showed up. This generation wants ice cream with their signature on it, their own personal one, to meet their own personal needs. They want to buy from somebody who knows that they're special and unique. Anyone who shows them that they care about them at that level, who knows they're special and unique, just like mommy and daddy taught them, is going to get their attention. But also, you got to remember, this person is choosy and jaded. They don't have to have it. Anybody who wants a refrigerator now, anybody who wants a VCR within reason, has already got it. So now they don't have to buy. They're not driven by scarcity. They're very, very choosy. You got to give them everything. They've learned by Japanese competition that they can not only have, let's say, the best quality, but they can also have the best price in the same item, and have selection, and have service. That's now the norm. Now this group of people expect everything. And as a result, since you can't get them to buy unless you meet their needs, and their needs are so much higher, businesses cannot operate the same way they used to. So now they have to be so flexible, because these people's idea of what they want can change very quickly. And by the way, as a result of these demographic and psychographic changes in psychology, changes in who's actually purchasing what, we're also finding companies like Sears are having difficulty. You know why? Because these people won't buy from Sears just because they always have. They're not loyal to a company. They're not loyal to a name. Many brand names are wondering, how are we going to compete? Why are we losing some consumers? It's because this new consumer, and by the way, this new consumer is starting to run these multinational companies. This new consumer is somebody whose needs are much different than anybody you've ever met before. In addition, our entire society is changing, because this new consumer is also the person running the nation. The President of the United States now is a baby boomer, as is the Vice President. Think about it. Heads of multinational corporations now are baby boomers. Who are baby boomers? They are rule breakers. They're not willing to do things just because it was always done that way. Oftentimes they like change. They want change to happen. We promised full-time employment. That was then. This is now. Today, to compete, we got to change it all. They've changed the economy wherever they've gone. There's a good metaphor for them. It's like a giant pig going through a snake. You know, when baby boomers were all born, guess what happened? Diaper sales went crazy because of this huge number of people who needed diapers. When all of a sudden they went to school, we needed more schools. When all of a sudden they'd grown up and went into business in the financial markets, there's a stimulation in that area. See, we can pretty much track a great deal of our economy, a great deal of where we're going through baby boomers. All of this background is to help you to understand where our culture is going. See, if we have to wait until change happens to you, you're on the back end of change and you're going to have some pain. But if we can anticipate it, we can see where things are going, we can begin to take advantage. So what all this is causing to occur is we've got a situation now where we have a very choosy consumer who now requires a tremendous amount. They want every bit of value they've ever gotten and then some. They want things to always be better, and they want them to be cheaper, and they want service, and they want supply, and that's what they expect, and they're not going to buy. So what's happening in companies? What companies are doing is saying, man, we got to cut our costs so we can compete. And so what they're doing is they're eliminating a lot of jobs. The problem is, less than 50% of the companies that have downsized in the last 2 years are any more profitable today than before they downsized. So we have not solved the problem just by eliminating jobs, by cutting the waste, because there are many other things that have to be done. So what some companies, of course, have turned to is the past. They said, well, we need to turn to total quality management. It's a great set of tools, but it doesn't help you to innovate as rapidly as the market now demands. So gradually there are a few companies that have figured out how to succeed, and they are the model by which other companies are now beginning to create change. Their model is not one of continuous improvement. Their model is, how do we make radical changes in the way in which we actually conduct our business so that we create dramatic improvements in what we can give the consumer and dramatic improvements in our profitability simultaneously. Now, a couple of business experts by the names of Michael Hammer and James Champy gave a term to what these companies are doing. It's called re-engineering. In its technical term, it's called business process re-engineering. Big term. You go, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear this. I don't need to re-engineer a business. I'm not even into engineering. Well, you might want to re-engineer your life when you understand what it really is. It's a way to dramatically improve the quality of your life by basically asking some new questions. Aren't there areas of your personal life that could be re-engineered? Aren't there areas where you're doing things that really don't make total sense? Or maybe it makes total sense based on the past. But if you were to totally rethink things, isn't there a more efficient way of doing things, a more enjoyable way of doing things? We all have systems we're not even aware of, just out of habituation. Like, for example, the way you get up in the morning and how you get prepared and what you do. Maybe instead of going to the cleaners twice a week and traveling there and spending time in line and finding a parking place and coming out, you get a cleaners that picks up your clothes and delivers them back at home. You don't even have to think about the process. Again, that's awfully simplistic. But you know something? We interviewed a gentleman by the name of Rick Newland. Some of you are familiar with him. He's a young man who jumped into a wave one day as a surfer in Orange County, and he hit the wave wrong, and it snapped his spine. He became a quadriplegic instantaneously. and no one was sure he would live. But through a process of not just re-engineering, but what I would again call regeneration, he has reorganized the way he lives his life in a way that gives him immense pleasure and allows him to do most of the things he used to do, but in a brand new way, causing him to use different resources to get the job done. He's an amazing man. But the bottom line is there was something he said I thought was interesting. He said, I think that most people know how to deal with the walls in life, smacking against the wall. He said it's the pebbles that really screw our life up. The things that kind of knock you out of state, the little things that just drive you crazy, and then all of a sudden you snap at your spouse, or you give up, or you get burnt out and tired and don't give 1,000% of your effort. So those little things are what really screw us up. So part of re-engineering also in your personal life might be, how do I get rid of as many pebbles as possible? How do I re-engineer my home life, etc.? And the only thing I thought of after I started really studying re-engineering in more detail was, it became obvious from all the statistics that have been collected that between 50 and 70% of all the companies that begin a re-engineering process fail. That is, the re-engineering process does not succeed. Now, after all this buildup I've given up to re-engineering, you say, oh my gosh, what's the matter here? And that's according, by the way, to Michael Hammer and James Champy, the guys who came up with this whole term and have really studied the process in probably as much detail as anyone. And as I looked at that, I said, okay, why is it failing? And I realized that re-engineering is only part of the process of creating a dramatic and lasting change in an organization, in a business, or even a person's personal life. So I started thinking about all that I know about change and all that I was studying, and I began to create a different concept, and a concept I now call regeneration. Now, what the heck is regeneration? Well, by definition, regeneration for me is the process of using human ingenuity to transform dormant resources. Dormant meaning something you're just not currently using. I don't care if it's a skill or an understanding or an ability you have. If it's a corporation, it might be people you're not using. It might be resources, computers that are not being fully utilized. I don't care what it is, but it's a transforming dormant resources into significant assets that powerfully increase the quality of our lives. What regeneration really is how do you use the resources you already have to create something new, something greater, something better than ever existed before. It's like, how do we produce a rebirth in our lives, a rebirth in a company? That's what regeneration meant to me. So I looked at that and I said, okay, what are we capable of as human beings when we really tap into our creativity, into our ingenuity? Unbelievable things. See, what gives things value in the 21st century is human creativity. It's brain power. See, brain power gives you the ability to add the most value to any natural resource. Listen, we learned how to turn dirt into a $150 billion a year industry, right? Computers. We turn sand into silicon chips to store information, to transfer information that has changed the structure of work. That came out of human creativity, ingenuity. Somebody who was willing to throw away all the old belief systems. Because to build these things, to build these computers, to build computer chips, they had to believe the opposite of what everybody believed before them. They had to re-engineer their thoughts. They had to regenerate. They had to say, you know what? Better is cheaper. That was never thought of before. They had to say, you know what? When things move faster, they're going to get cooler. These are core beliefs that were necessary to have these breakthroughs happen in the computer industry. This fries most people's brains. But see, this is how change happens. And you and I, every single person that you're going to meet, has this well of creativity inside them, but it hasn't been tapped before because it hasn't had to be tapped. Because human beings only tap into their real ability when things are a must, not a should. And for most people, change has been a should. But I'm here to tell you, here is what's exciting. Here's the payoff of this tape. We are living in a society now where the demands are so much higher on business that we have to get more creative than ever before. And that is every person's niche who's willing to develop themselves, train themselves to use their mind and body in brand new ways, to add more value. How do we regenerate the quality of life? By tapping into those unused resources and turning them into assets that improve the quality of not only our lives, but other people's as well. Let's come back to re-engineering just for a second, though. You say, what's the difference between regeneration and re-engineering? Well, re-engineering is one of 5 steps that help you to regenerate. That is to create anew, to produce a lasting, massive, dramatic change in your life, in an organization, in a community, in a family, in a country. Now, why hasn't re-engineering worked in some cases? Because people have gotten together and designed some new systems that need to be implemented, but they haven't followed through. They haven't taken action. They haven't retrained people. They haven't reassured people that, hey, this will work out. Trust me, go for it, follow through. So many times organizations have come up with a good re-engineering plan, but they never implement it. out of fear of the unknown, out of fear of loss. People in the organization maybe have secondary gain. They're afraid, well, if we re-engineer, what will that do to my job? What will that do to my sense of control? But we have to let go of that, because otherwise these organizations won't be around to be able to provide those kinds of jobs for people. The truth of the matter is sometimes organizations have even implemented these changes, but they still aren't succeeding. Because I think the first step to regeneration, step number one, is you must reinvent yourself. Whether it be you that you're trying to regenerate, like let's say you want to regenerate your own body and look and feel better and have a new identity, or whether it be government wanting to reinvent itself, or whether it be a corporation. We have to develop an identity. Now, you remember what the process of identity really means. It means that if I think you're a great guy and you're my best friend and you treat me really vicious, I may get upset about that. But sure enough, after a while, I'll rationalize it and say, well, you're probably having a, bad day. But if I think you're a manipulator, if I think you're a liar, if I think you don't care about me or anybody else, and one day you start treating me really nice, I'm going to say in my head, what does he want? You see, what controls my responsiveness to you is not the fact that you re-engineered your life to be a nice guy now. What controls it is my concept of you. Classic example is government. Government wants to reinvent itself by doing a better job. Well, if they go out and re-engineer like crazy, but as long as we think of government as a bunch of fat cats who are wasting our money, unless we create a new identity for government, we'll keep noticing what they don't do well, and they'll never change their identity, and the re-engineering process really won't last. There'll be no reinforcement for it. Do you follow me on this? The point of the matter is, let me now briefly share with you the 5 fundamental processes for tapping into your resources, using those resources that right now are dormant in a brand new way that turn problems into assets, that turn waste into assets that dramatically improve the quality of life for your business and for your personal life, what we call regeneration. Here it is very briefly. Step number 1, I've already told you, is reinventing. Now, what does it mean to reinvent? What really this first step of reinventing is number 1, you got to get a vision. The vision of what do you want things to be like. Number 2, you got to make a decision. You got to make sure you flat decide, or you're not going to turn back, that this is how it's going to be. And number 3, you've got to communicate, not only to yourself, but other people you're interacting with, that this is what you're committed to. Let's say, for example, you want to regenerate your body as a metaphor. You have to decide, what do I want to look like? Get images. Take a good look at what you look like now, so you get the motivation to change, and a good look at what your health level is like now, and then see what you want to look like. Design it in detail. Get clear about how you would function, what you'd be like, what your rules would be, how you'd conduct yourself. Then step 2 is, you got to re-engineer your life so you really get that. That means you're going to have to work on, if you prepare your own food, making sure you make different purchases, or you hire someone else to prepare your meals. It means that you're going to have to say, okay, in the mornings, I'm going to exercise now, which means I'm going to go to bed earlier and get up earlier. And I'm going to do this so I get addicted to it. I'm going to get a coach, somebody who can help me to invent myself, someone who can help me to re-engineer my life and really make sure I follow through. Step 3 of regeneration is you've got to reassure the people involved. Now, if you're trying to regenerate yourself, you're going to need some reassurance, because in the beginning, you're going to go out and it's going to be hard. That's where a coach can be so valuable, because they reassure you, hey, it's going to be worth it. You're going to make it through. Hang in there. Same thing is true in a company. When we start making changes, people get fearful. They need to have a sense that, hey, this is really going to work. Reassuring just means that in the initial and in the ongoing process of constantly dispelling people's doubts, making certain that they feel like change is going to be safe, secure, but most important, it's going to be worth it. People have to be reassured to stay on board, and the same thing is true if you want to regenerate your life. The 4th element of regeneration is you've got to retrain. That is, in the case of your body, you've got to retrain muscles. You've got to teach them how to function differently. In the organization, you've got to retrain people on how to do things more efficiently. Because if you re-engineer everything, and you've got this brand new identity, and you've reassured everybody, but their old habits of doing things, their old training, their old conditioning will keep them from doing things that will make the company profitable, or make the job more efficient, or make the family happier, or whatever the case may be of what you're trying to regenerate. And finally, you've got to revitalize your life, your organization, your community, your family. And the way you do that is very simple. You take immediate action on this reinvention, this re-engineering, this reassuring, and this retraining. You take immediate action on your plan. There's an old phrase I remember from years ago that's affected my life greatly, and it's one of the reasons I've achieved a lot of goals that many people have never even begun, and that is, you never leave the sight of setting a goal without doing something towards its attainment. You've got to take some kind of action. Revitalization occurs in an organization when people see it's not just the newest fad, that these things are actually happening. Changes are occurring. The secret is you've got to notice, promote, and publicize the small successes so they can stack upon one another and create momentum. Again, if it's your own body, you got to notice those improvements. You got to say, wow, I got some muscle here I didn't have any before. Wow, I feel a little more energy here. Wow, I feel more flexible. Wow, I feel stronger. You've got to notice it and reward yourself with the acknowledgement that says, I'm making progress. Pretty soon, one success builds on another until you have a brand new set of habits that are self-fulfilling, where there's an ongoing reward. The reward may be feedback from the outside, what people say to you about what they see and what they feel. The rewards are also from the inside, how you feel about your life and about your identity and about taking control of your own physical destiny. So now, having given you the overview of these 5 steps to regeneration, again, they are reinvent, which basically means come up with a vision, come up with a decision, and communicate it. The second step, again, is to re-engineer, which is figure out how are you going to organize things so that you can consistently get this new identity. The third step is to reassure, so you keep the certainty that will get you to take action and to follow through or get others to work with you to create this immediate, dramatic, and lasting change that you're committed to. Fourthly, you got to retrain. That's really the process of giving people the special instruction or getting the coaching you need or the practice in that's necessary for you to achieve maximum efficiency and getting the job done. Whether that job is enjoying your life or that job is being more effective in serving your customer, you've got to train yourself for maximum efficiency. You've got to get the special instruction or training, or you've got to give that to the people with whom you're committed to creating a regeneration. And then revitalizing, which is really to give a new vigor, a compelling future, something that really gets people excited and makes them implement this revitalization that you're so committed to. And that's created by giving them a compelling future, something people get excited about, and again, noticing the wins along the way and reinforcing them. And you know what? No matter how successful your life is, no matter how much you've accomplished, if you're not experiencing all the joy and passion that you want, then maybe it's time to do some regeneration. Maybe it's time to make some decisions about what you want your life to be like again. Maybe it's time to re-engineer it. Look at how you've organized your life and make sure you can get the same goals or maybe better goals with less stress. My point is real simple. No one is trapped in a box. No one has no choice except the person who believes it. Not living in the society that you and I live in. We have total freedom to create it any way we want it. Think about regeneration in a brand new way. Realize regeneration is a way you could contribute. You could figure a way to help regenerate your company. Wouldn't that be nice? Or maybe part of the process, the re-engineering at your company or the retraining. Maybe you can just be a source of reassuring people so people aren't so fearful about the future because you have a better understanding of where things are going and why the changes are occurring. Hopefully this tape is giving you some insight in that area. You don't have to do all of this. I just wanted this tape to provide you with a couple of things. One, an understanding of where some of the most important changes are happening within our society, where they're coming from, and where it's going to take us. An idea, two, of how can you take control of your own destiny? How can you turn around an organization, a community, a family, or your life? A way of looking at it, a frame of reference. Obviously, I haven't listed every single step in detail. That's part of your own creativity to figure out how to do it for you. There is no right or wrong way. You can get some coaching to assist you, or you can do it completely on your own. But there's one thing I want you to remember from this tape. It's to remember what human ingenuity, what your innate creativity can produce. I mean, just think about what you're capable of again, and instead of just thinking about it, do something. Think about what one human being can do through the power of vision, decision, communication, creative questioning, the reassurance that comes from conviction, the constant process of re-education and retraining, and the compelling future and the small successes that build to create the momentum of lasting change. Who we are and what we're capable of is so far beyond our present concept, it's a joke. Isn't it time you tapped into those dormant resources around you, whether it be the intellect of your friends, the products or services that sit in front of you, or just your imagination? I shouldn't say just, because maybe that's the greatest resource. To turn these dormant ideas, resources, elements into significant assets that massively improve the quality of your life and all those people you have the privilege to touch. It doesn't take a genius to see that we're living in turbulent times. Economically turbulent, socially turbulent, Our future is really unclear for so many people, and as a result, a lot of us experience pain in our lives. And a few of us experience tremendous pleasure, the pleasure that comes from being on the cutting edge, the pleasure that comes from being in control instead of in reaction, the pleasure that comes from predicting instead of reacting. What am I specifically talking about? I'm talking about the fact that all of us are always looking for the edge in life. We're looking for something that's going to help us to win, to go to the next level, to grow, to expand, to have a competitive advantage in business, to really direct our lives. And you know what? Whenever I meet people that are extremely successful, I'm always asking that question. What is the difference in this person? What makes them so much more effective than other people? And as you can guess, there isn't any one skill that makes people more effective. Certainly there is a consistent commitment in these people to constantly and never-endingly improve their life. But you know what? The discipline of kanai, constant never-ending improvement, is not the only common denominator that I find. There is another consistent factor or skill that every one of these winners seems to share in common. Whether this person be a peak performer in business, the best at what they do, or somebody who really knows how to make their relationship be passionate consistently, or someone who's a great parent, or whether it's a company on the cutting edge. I can tell you the common denominator is the ability to consistently anticipate change before it occurs. You know what? This skill can take stress out of your life, and this skill can make you incredibly successful. It can make you wealthy in financial terms. It can make you wealthy in emotional terms. It can take away fear. The power to anticipate is the power to shape the direction of your life and all those you care about. It could be argued that anticipation is the ultimate advantage. Why? Because ultimately in your life, it will be very easy to find the level of your success by one simple ability. Your ability to solve problems, from the most intense, incredible, profound, to the most ridiculous and simple. This really defines how your life turns out. Because on a natural flow, without a problem, without a challenge, everything seems to be fine. It's when these problems show up. Your level of success is how quickly, how easily, how elegantly can you solve these problems, these challenges, these things that get in the way of your being able to do what you want the moment you want to do it. Now, what's the challenge then? The challenge is most of us, when we get into a problem, find ourselves immersed and we find ourselves in reaction to a problem. It's happening right now. We're trying to solve it. We feel stressed. Who are the leaders in industry? Who are the leaders in nations? Who are the leaders in anything? The people who anticipate a problem before it even shows up and they solve it before it even happens. That's what the word anticipate means. It means to foresee and deal with in advance. And I can tell you one thing, this skill will give you more joy in your life than almost anything else I can imagine, other than learning to manage your own emotional state. And even that requires some anticipation, knowing the kinds of environments that might stimulate you to go into a lousy state and dealing with it in advance. What you're doing when you're anticipating is you're utilizing the capacity to step beyond the present moment and utilize the future as your leverage. I read an article in Forbes magazine where they were interviewing some of the employees who were asking the new chairman of the board of General Electric how he could let them go. How come I was good yesterday, one man said, but I'm not worthwhile today? And he said, listen, it's not you're not worthwhile. He said, you just got to know something. What you're doing is no longer competitive. He said, you know, when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, that was really powerful. But today, kids in high school run 4-minute miles. We can't live on yesterday's standards and expect to be the winner today. We've got to anticipate what are the standards of tomorrow and how do we create those standards right now. That's how we win the game of life. You watch in sports. The power of anticipation in sports is the difference between somebody who's a Hall of Famer in something, somebody's a superstar, and somebody who's mediocre. See, it's anticipation that makes a Wayne Gretzky. When they asked him again, I've used this example before, you're not the tallest, you're not the strongest, you're not the fastest. How come you're so great? How come you're so successful? His answer is, well, I think most people usually skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going. You watch a great basketball player and they make the pass. They don't pass to where the person is. You pass to where the person's going. If you pass to where they are right now, you're going to miss them. The same thing is true in life. It's true in relationships. It's true in business. We've got to be able to anticipate where everybody's going around us so we can meet their needs. If we meet people's needs, they're going to feel fulfilled. We're going to strengthen our relationships. We're going to add more value, and we're going to succeed. This is one of the simplest secrets to life, and it's one we've got to apply daily. And I want to sell you on making this one of the most highly valued criteria in your life. I want to sell you on that this is a skill, that this is not just intuition or getting lucky, and some people are able to anticipate and some people aren't, or it's something you can't do because it's too complex and the world's changing too fast. Garbage. I want to demystify this process for you, because it is a process. Anticipating is a process, and not anticipating is the result of your own conditioning. Because that's the obvious question. It must be coming up in your head, and you say, okay, Tony, well, there are a lot of things I can anticipate, but I don't. So why don't I? Because you get caught up in patterns. We all do, don't we? Patterns of perception. In fact, there's a word that we hear a lot in business these days. It's becoming the hot word to talk about. It's the word paradigm. What is a paradigm? A paradigm is nothing but an accepted way of thinking. A way of thinking that everyone seems to accept that goes unquestioned through time. In other words, it's a shared set of assumptions. An example of a paradigm that we all studied in history was the paradigm that the world is flat. Everyone assumed that the world was flat. There was no real absolute proof, but everyone accepted that way of thinking. It wasn't until a paradigm shifter, a guy named Columbus, came along and was willing to test those rules, test those barriers. And by the way, that's another way of describing a paradigm. A paradigm is a set of barriers, a set of rules about how to interpret the world, about what can and cannot happen, what will and will not happen. Now, you and I have spent some time in the past talking about belief systems. And certainly you might say, well, how is a paradigm different than a belief? Well, a paradigm is really a system of evaluating many areas of your life. You may utilize many different beliefs in order to make a decision on a consistent basis. That may make up your paradigm. In other words, your paradigm may be made up of many different beliefs. Now, rather than getting all caught up in this word, let's simplify it. A paradigm is a set of rules, a set of assumptions, a set of barriers that control how you perceive your life, what you think is possible or impossible, what you can and cannot do, what others will or will not do. Another simple way of looking at paradigms is to think of it in metaphorical terms as if it were a game. See, we all have games that we've played, and games are paradigms. What is a game? There is a goal. There are a set of rules of what you can and cannot do in order to achieve that goal. In order to achieve that goal, what do you got to do? You've got to solve a series of problems based on the rules of the game. Well, in your life, you've got this game called life worked out. You may think this game is a game of respect. You may think this game is a game of competition. You may think this game is a game of being a victim. I doubt if the latter example fits you. Probably the former do, or something else. But the point of the matter is, you have an idea what life's about, what you can and cannot do, what other people can and cannot do, and you've got certain rules and barriers that guide the whole process. And along the way, you're going to be solving problems based upon your beliefs, your paradigms of how life really is. A good example of this metaphorically, again, would be like playing tennis. Tennis is a paradigm. It's a game with a set of goals. There are specific rules of how to do it, and it's your ability to solve problems that allows you to win the game of tennis. What happens? Your opponent hits the ball into your court, and it gives you a certain level of problem. And what you've got to do is you've got to address it. But you've got to solve the problem of getting this from your court over into their court using only the rules of the game of tennis. You can't use a baseball bat, right? You can't catch it with your hand and throw it back over there. You've got to use those specific rules, and they limit the way you play the game, don't they? Just like your paradigms about relationship, or your paradigms about business, or your paradigms about yourself, control and direct what you are allowing yourself to do to solve problems or to produce results. Now, what's really neat is if you solve your problem, what you do is you deliver your problem to the other side of the court and you give your partner there a problem. And then he has to solve his problem of getting the ball out of his side of the court and into yours, again using those same rules. And what happens is we keep trading problems back and forth until one of us is able to deliver a problem so big to the other person they can't deal with it anymore, and we win. Now, what's interesting is this idea can really help you understand the concept of paradigm. And I can promise you, if you're in the business community, you probably already heard the term or you're about to. And the general public as well is going to start reading about it in newspapers because the rate of change is no longer minor changes like just reinforcement or just a little small improvement. Overnight, industries are disappearing, and they're disappearing because they're not anticipating a paradigm shift, a wholesale change in the rules of the game. It'd be like if we said we're going to play tennis now, and now when you play tennis, you catch the ball and you throw it at the other person, and if you hit them, now you're successful at the game of tennis. Those are the kinds of shifts that are happening. They're radical, and we've seen them in virtually every area of our society, from relationships to business to the way we look at our own government. The rules of the game for the media have changed. The rules of the game for virtually every aspect of society not only have changed, but continue to change so rapidly few people can keep up. But in our society, you must keep up. And let me tell you the good news. There are only certain areas of life you have to focus on to really have the edge. And we're going to discuss a few of these here. And by the way, if there wasn't this incredible push of change in our society, we wouldn't be living in the exciting times we're in. You go, yeah, it doesn't feel very exciting to me right now, Tony. I'm going through some tough times. Yeah, but you know what? As bad as it feels right now, it's going to push you to another level. decades. Now, if you're one of those, and you say, well, that doesn't feel very good. I don't. I was reading in Joel Barker's book the history and the decline of the Swiss watch manufacturers. I mean, back in 1968, when you thought of a Swiss watch, what'd you think of? Best in the world. They were the best. In fact, they manufactured 65% of all the watches made in the world. They had 90% of the profits in the world, most people say. Are they the number one manufacturer today? Do you go out and ask for a Swiss watch when you go out there now? Probably not. You know why? They control only 10% of the market. The Japanese control 35%. And you know what's interesting? Was that because they didn't practice kanai? No, they did. As much as I've promoted kanai to you, that is only one principle. You got to do more than just constantly improve. You got to practice kanai at the level of anticipation. You got to constantly and never-endingly improve your ability to anticipate major change. You got to be able to innovate, not just improve. And you know what? These people constantly improve their watches. The Swiss are the ones who created the minute hand and then the second hand. They developed the best gear system in the world for a watch. They created digital technology. But when they looked at it, they said, it doesn't have any gears in it. Nobody's going to want this. So they sold it to the Japanese, to a company called Seiko. I bet you've heard of them, haven't you? This is so critical. I'm sure you read the book In Search of Excellence, right? It was a #1 bestseller for years and years. That book reported on 43 of the best-run companies in America. But you know something? 14 of those 43 were in financial trouble within 2 years after that book was written. And you know what? Business Week did a study on them, and they said they all had one thing in common. They all failed to react and respond to changes. That's how they went from being the model company to the companies that were in financial ruin. Now you might say, well, Tony, I don't run a company. I don't own my own company. You're not even talking to me. Yes, I am. Because you know what? Those companies are nothing but a metaphor for your own life, for our own society. They're a reflection of the level of change. Listen, back in 1970, a little more than 20 years ago, CBS was really having a tough time making a decision on whether they're going to put a show on the air or not. And they were really concerned about it. It was going really against the values of the day. You know what that show was? Mary Tyler Moore. Mary Tyler Moore show. Can you imagine why? Because she was a divorcee. Ooh. The truth is, that's one of the places that values originally get shifted. When mass number of people see a rule change on television and they grow to like that character, they very often will adopt similar changes in their rules. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying we have to look at the consequences and know that they're there. 20 years ago, that was one of the changes that happened. And now look what we've got. Look at the changes in the paradigm of what can be said on the radio, what's said on television, the type and quality of language, the type and quality of images. Are those changing the rules of our society? You better believe it. Are they changing the rules of what's acceptable and unacceptable? You better believe it. Are those rule changes taking us in the direction we want to go? I guess that's everyone's individual decision to make. But you got to know that they're changing. And you got to know that those changes that we're seeing happening in society are affecting your personal life. They're affecting the person you're sitting across the table with for dinner, who you're hoping to go out with, and how they're going to look at a relationship with you. They're going to determine the kind of relationship you're going to have with this person 20 years from now, because I can virtually guarantee you it's not going to be the same as it is today. Because the roles and the rules are going to continue to change and expand. This two-income household that we've adopted, right, wrong, or indifferent, that rule change, that was a paradigm shift. What has it done? It's changed the expectations of both parties. It's added tremendous stress on both parties, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's changed the structure of how our children are raised. And this is changing the direction of society as a whole. Paradigm shifts are things you must study. You must be aware of. You cannot afford to say ignorance is bliss. No, ignorance is poverty. Ignorance equals unemployment. See, a lot of people are unemployed because they couldn't see their own industry coming to the end because they're so busy just making a living instead of designing a life. We've got to anticipate. So I keep saying this to you again and again and again. So Robin, you go, stop it. How do I anticipate? Good question. Let me give you 5 simplistic approaches to help you avoid the trap of being caught up in your own paradigm. Then let me offer you the psychology of how human behavior becomes patterned. That is how we create trends, because we all know if we can anticipate certain trends, not just follow a trend, but anticipate it, we can avoid certain pains in our lives because we're prepared for it. And we can also experience pleasure because we can anticipate it and take advantage of the situation. Now, here's the first thing that can help you avoid the trap of being caught up in your own paradigm. Beware the unquestioned conviction. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, a belief is nothing but a feeling of certainty about what something means. So you feel certain your spouse is happy. You feel certain your kids are in great shape. You feel certain that your job will always be there, right? Nothing wrong with that. But when you get a conviction, it means you feel so certain about something and you're so invested in believing in something that you're not willing to take any new input. You're not willing to question, even for a moment, hey, is there any possibility that your current job may not be here 5 years from now because a radical new technology or a radical new change in the marketplace's desires could wipe it out? If you're not willing to look at the possibility that your children may not be as good off as you think for the moment, your ego gets in the way, or your conviction that they're perfect gets in the way, then you can't create the changes you're committed to. You can't improve anything. We've got to be aware of these. Whenever you start saying this is the only way, you may be right. But stop and say, what if there was another way? What would it be? Or when you start saying something is impossible, I'd be real careful on that one. Because what was impossible yesterday is probable today. That's the pace of change we're in. So start thinking. Start being aware of your convictions. And when you start feeling there's only one way to do something, break out and at least consider another possibility. That'll help you avoid getting caught up in your own trap. Second, make sure you develop a new belief system, one you create certainty about. And the one thing you can be certain about is that change is certain. If you want to get certain about something, be certain that change is coming, and then you'll always be anticipating it. You won't be reacting to it. I remember years ago, a good friend of mine, Bob Bays, used to tell me, I only feel certain about one thing in life, and I'm certain that things will change. And I thought, well, with that sense of certainty, I guess you're never surprised by anything. He said, no, and he also is one of the most balanced people I know. Change doesn't bother him like it bothers other people. For most people, it's not the change that bothers them so much, it's the fact that they're not ready for the change. They're not anticipating the change. It's like a giant pattern erupt. It smacks them, and they're not prepared for it. They don't know how to deal with it. The third key is this: break your pattern of thinking in a linear fashion. This is what keeps you from getting what you want. We all get trapped thinking, oh, tomorrow, I know what tomorrow's going to be like. Let me look at today's sky. The sky looks really good. It's not going to rain tomorrow. It sure as heck does. Or you know what? The last 2 months have been great weather. That doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be great weather. Or today is lousy weather doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be lousy. That's what happens in stock markets. People say, wow, look at the market. It's been going up and up and up. I better jump on. That's not the way to evaluate. You're thinking in a linear fashion, and you know what? It's a great way to get yourself killed financially. I've seen it happen to so many people. Does this happen emotionally? Yeah. Hey, my relationship's been great up until now. It's been great for the last 6 years. Doesn't mean it's going to be great tomorrow if you don't find a way to make it better. You can't assume that the status quo will remain. In fact, if there's anything you can assume, it's that it's going to be broken up. That something is going to challenge the status quo. If it doesn't change it, at least it's going to challenge it. And you want to be aware of it. So one of the ways you can change your life is don't think in this linear fashion. Maybe you want to start thinking in a cyclical fashion. Throughout human history, certain things keep coming up just like seasons. When you're in the middle of fall and the weather's really nice, instantaneously, overnight the next day, it can be winter. And if you don't have a thing called a calendar, which helps you to anticipate this, and you're thinking linear the last 2 or 3 weeks or months, you're going to be taken by surprise. And you're either going to be uncomfortable or you're going to freeze to death. But on the other hand, if you thought in a cyclical fashion, you'd say, hey, things are going really great right now in my business. Things are going really great in my relationship right now. Guess what? There will be challenging times. That's not being a negative thinker. Winters do come. Let me right now figure out what I'm going to do so when winter comes here, I can ski. When winter comes here, I can make it even better. So when the challenging times show up in my business, I'm prepared. This is the thing that most people don't do. Think cyclically versus linearly. Think as an innovator. Think the unthinkable thought. And how do you do that? Go to step 4. Ask questions no one else has the courage to ask. Ask questions no one else is asking about your industry. Ask yourself questions about yourself. It's so easy to get caught up and not want to look at yourself with a more critical eye. But if you were to raise your standards, if you were to raise standards for what your business needs to do for your customer, if you were to raise your standards for what do you need to do to make your husband or wife feel more loved than ever before, or your significant other, depending upon your current level of relationship, if you were to raise your standards for what you need to do to make sure your children are really getting the education they need, are really feeling loved the way they need to feel loved, are really getting the resources that they need to successfully compete in an ever-changing world, unless you're willing to ask those questions, you're not going to get new answers. The fifth key, become a student of possibility. Become a student of potentiality. Don't just allow yourself to get caught up in reading what everybody else in your industry reads or surround yourself with the same kind of people. You know something? One of my most valuable things that I do in my life that I love is the fact that Becky and I have such diverse friends. I mean, one of the times I had a really wonderful dinner at Thanksgiving, I'll never forget, we brought everybody in there together. They're all sitting down. There were 100 people at our house for dinner, and we're all looking around the room. And some of the people are people like Captain John, who works in the South Bronx for the Salvation Army. And we met him, or we went out and fed some people on Thanksgiving one time years ago, and he's been a friend ever since. He's out there in the trenches turning things around. And then we have somebody else at the table, and he was the CEO of one of the major Fortune 500 companies. Then we had another good friend of mine who's a very famous actor. And then we had another guy who's a comedian. And we had a musician there. And then we had a few people that thought they were actors and musicians who aren't very good, right? That were just working at various normal kinds of jobs, doing normal kinds of everyday things, but they're really wonderful people. As I looked around the room and saw this diversity of people, and I got up to, give our prayer and to say thanks, I said, before I say anything else, I just want to say that I think God has an incredible sense of humor. Because look at the diversity of kinds of people He creates. But something, that has been one of the most valuable tools in my life. Because I don't get to just hear one point of view reinforced over and over and over again. I'm hearing so many different points of view, and that has helped me immensely to understand how people think. I've had the privilege now of working with more than 500,000 people in seminars and private therapies and business environments all over North America and around the world. That diversity is invaluable, and you must go get that diversity. The fastest way to get it is you can go get it by reading. Because some of the most brilliant people in our culture have written books. And you know what? A lot of them don't agree with each other, which is fabulous. That's why I just got done reading these 10 books. Some of them contradict each other, which is wonderful, because then I get to decide what I believe, what makes sense to me, what allows me to make my own decisions, allows me to fail if I'm going to fail by my own conviction, or allows me to succeed by my ability to synthesize new possibilities. You've got to be a student of possibility. You've got to study technology. There's huge technological change that's going to change the way we educate ourselves. It's going to change the way we entertain ourselves. It's going to change the structure of how people experience reality. Everything from something as simple as CD-ROM and this overused word multimedia, where now you can get a CD-ROM that on this one CD-ROM you have a map of every city, street, town, every dirt road in the United States on one CD-ROM. Or compression technology, compression television is going to create so many choices of entertainment, so many different movies, so many different channels that will provide different kinds of education, different worldviews, different paradigms. If you watch the Discover Channel, you're going to get a different set of paradigms about life than, for example, if you watch MTV. I'm not saying either one is right, but if you continually have our world where we're all getting different input, we're going to find that our society becomes more fragmentized than ever before. All of these situations provide incredible opportunity. The opportunity to grow, the opportunity to understand, the opportunity to comfort people around you, the opportunity to create products or services or concepts that can enhance the quality of life for society, opportunity to do well financially, the opportunity to become more stimulated than any time in human history. These are the times that we live in. It's an incredible time. What else should you become a student of? Necessity. If you really want to be able to anticipate trends, you should become a student of necessity. What do people in society see as a necessity rather than an accessory? Because that drive, that demand of the large numbers of people in our society saying we got to have something, puts mass number of people to work to focus on solving that problem. And when lots of people work on the problem and everybody wants it, we invariably tend to find a way to make it happen. The resources are there. I'll tell you what else you should be a student of. Consequences and inevitability. Certain things you know are inevitable. Certain things you know, if I do X, I know Y is going to happen. But most of us never really study consequences. We never look at, hey, if I make this decision and that decision, what's that going to mean to my life long term? Instead, we react. Let me tell you something. Again, reaction is not where you want to be. Reaction is the direct opposite of anticipation. Now, there's no doubt, and I still do this as well, there are going to be areas in your life where you react because you're not prepared. But you want to make those the exception instead of the rule. And I can tell you, one of the ways to do that is really get sold on the limits of reaction. A lot of people say, well, I'll deal with it when it shows up. Well, let me give you a fun metaphor. One of the things we do at our mastery program is we teach people there a form of martial art where we show people how to be able to defend themselves against virtually any attacker. And the training we have, we bring in a master, and his number one organizing principle is, I don't teach any technique that someone can't master in 3 minutes. That's pretty intense. But his whole thing is, if you have to remember it, and it's really complex, and you've got to practice it for months or years to get it down, when all of a sudden you're surprised, and you're not anticipating it, and you get attacked in the real world in the street, some of these complex skills just go out the window. You can't remember them. Just like sometimes you can't remember your own telephone number or how to spell the word the, only there are bigger consequences than not knowing how to defend yourself. So he makes it simple. And by the way, he developed this because he trains Navy SEAL teams, and he also trains many of the law enforcement members from across the United States, including the Secret Service. What he found was that there is a reactionary gap. What that means specifically is, how is it that an officer gets attacked and somebody's just got a knife and he's got a gun and they're, 10, 20 feet away and he's not able to defend himself in time? Because the person doing the attacking has the advantage of surprise. The officer was not anticipating them. And here are the physical facts. You might find this interesting. A grown man can travel 21 feet. Here they are, 21 feet away with a knife in their hand. They can travel at 21 feet in 1.5 to 2 seconds. Now think about that. It takes more time than it takes for you to recognize the pattern of what's going on. Oh, this guy's attacking me. Then formulate a plan, then reach down and get your gun, and then pull it out and protect yourself. It's already over. And you know what? That's a great metaphor for what happens in life. See, if you were anticipating, you could deal with so many things so much more easily. It's not that you don't have the tools. It's not that you don't have the gun. It's that you're not anticipating and things strike you. This is why you've got to become a student of consequence, a student of inevitability. You must also become a student of pain, cultural pain, pain in relationships, pain within businesses. Because if you can find what the pain is, or the pain that's coming, and come up with a solution, a way to solve that pain, your future is assured. You will never have to worry about whether you have a career or not. You'll never have to worry, will you be able to succeed or not. Those who can solve problems, those who can eliminate pain, are those who are the leaders of our culture as a whole. They're the people who have the least pain in their life because they know what to do to protect themselves, and they have the most pleasure because they find solutions. Become a student of value. See, if you want to anticipate what people are going to want more of, if you're going to want to anticipate how to do well financially, if you're going to anticipate how to make yourself more valuable to a company, if you're going to anticipate what a man or woman would want in a relationship, you got to know what people value. And the more you understand what people value, the more power you have to anticipate what not only any individual, but what mass number of individuals are going to want. Becoming a student of value virtually ensures, if you act upon your understandings, that you will succeed in financial terms, you'll succeed in business terms, and you'll succeed in your personal life as well. It's your ability to anticipate what people value most and to meet those values that gives you the capacity to enjoy your life and do what you want to do when you want to do it in a way that empowers other people in the process. Listen, this is exactly what John Templeton has done. This guy is the #1 money manager in the world since the 1950s. If you ask Sir John Templeton, what is the single most valuable skill that you developed in your lifetime? He says very simply this: what's made me successful is my ability to value what a company, product, or service is worth. That's it. He knows what it's really worth. So when everyone else gets emotional and they start buying something because everybody else is buying it and they get greedy, or they start selling it because everybody else is afraid, he looks at what it's really worth. You want to really anticipate? Become a student of value. There are major shifts going on in our society. What you've got to learn to do is be a leader by making your ability to anticipate one of your most valued assets. If you value it, if you constantly focus on it and improve on it, you will absolutely have the edge. And you'll have the edge in your company, you can have the edge in the quality of relationships, you can have the edge in how you raise your children. Because you'll be able to anticipate problems before they occur and solve them before they come up. That's powerful. In fact, in business, a good manager is somebody who can solve problems consistently. And they're able to do it no matter what. But that's reaction. A leader is someone who envisions potential challenges in advance and solves them. Anticipating trends in human desire and human behavior will also then give you peace of mind, because you won't be one of those people who lives in fear. You'll be living in a state of certainty, knowing that whatever comes up, you're prepared for it, and that preparation gives you the edge. So really you have three choices. Either one, just wait for things to happen and try to react to them and lose the edge and experience lots of pain. Or two, anticipate changes and trends by noticing what's going on around you, becoming sensitive, making it a priority, and then of course utilize that information to improve the quality of your life. It is not enough just to anticipate. We're taking for granted one thing here. You realize you got to use your personal power. You got to utilize what you know to create some quality change. There is a third option, and that is not just notice trends, but to become a trend creator. Become a paradigm shifter rather than someone who just studies them. Now, how do you become a paradigm shifter? Well, first of all, you don't have to do that to succeed. But if you're the kind of person that wants to help shape what's happening in our society, one, understand what's going on around you, and two, develop or define a vision that inspires not only you, but the people around you. This is how you can begin to create a paradigm shift. This is what Bill Gates did when he was just this young kid that most people thought were crazy. He built a core team around him who shared his vision. This is what Tom Watson did to create IBM. And by the way, IBM is only here today because Tom Watson Jr. challenged his father's vision completely. He told his father that the paradigm was changing and that they had to shift to computers. They fought about it continuously. There was major upset. But in the end, his father listened. They changed their paradigm, and as they did so, they ensured their ability to become one of the most successful and profitable companies internationally. And by the way, they're under attack right now. Why? Because they haven't made a paradigm shift they probably need to make organizationally. The same level of thinking that's made IBM as successful as it is now slowing up its capacity to change quickly. They need to develop a new vision, a new set of rules, a new paradigm. So step number one to becoming a paradigm shifter, get clear on what is your vision, something that inspires you and people around you. The second key to being a paradigm shifter, again, is ask questions no one is asking. That's how you get new answers. Joel Barker, in his book, Future Vision, offers a question for people to ask. He says, ask yourself, what's currently impossible in my industry that if it was possible, it would change all the rules of the game? Asking that question might get you to anticipate something no one else has anticipated. I'm saying to you, ask the same question in your personal life. What's impossible in your life right now? What's impossible for you to do currently with your wife? What's impossible for you to do with your kids? And if it was possible, how would you go about doing it? If it was possible, how would it change the entire experience you have with your family? What's impossible to do with your physical body right now? And if it was possible, how would that change your whole life? And how would you go about doing it if it was possible? Asking this what-if type of question helps you to break out of the paradigm and start to create new paradigms. Here's the third key to being a paradigm shifter, not just an observer or utilizer, but someone who makes it happen. Step 3, if it makes sense, then break the rules. If you see that your common sense says doing something completely different than anyone's ever tried it before might make sense, then by gosh, go do it. Break the rule, make it happen. That's how most success happens in business. That's how most success happens in our world. When you start creating a path where a path never existed before, just remember this. Life rewards those who contribute on a massive scale. And you know what? If you are willing to challenge the paradigms that currently exist and bring an alternative that enhances the quality of life, and you're willing to stick with it till it comes to be, then all the pain will be worth it because you'll have the pride of knowing that what you did has truly made a difference. Achieving your ultimate goal. So what is it? Have I gotten your curiosity? How could I possibly know what your ultimate goals are? How dare I even think this way? You know what? I think I can really say what it is. You might tell me that my ultimate goal is to make a huge difference in the world. My ultimate goal is to raise my children to be strong individuals and make a difference in their lives and people that they get to know and touch. You might say, no, my goal is to make $1 billion, $1 million, $100 million. No, my goal is just to be the best I am moment to moment. See, you might say my goal is to have a sailboat and go around the world. But the truth is, none of those are your ultimate goal. What are you doing it all for? Why are you working so hard to support your children and get them to be good people? Why are you really wanting to make a difference? Why do you want the sailboat? Why do you want the Jaguar or the Ferrari? Or why is it that you want to travel around the world? What's the sailboat for? What is all this stuff that's been driving you? What's really behind it all? And the answer, I believe, is there's only one goal you really have: to be happy. You really want, and you may word it differently than I'm using. You may not use the word happiness, but you want a consistent sense of pleasure within your being. And you know what? You deserve it. But there's a problem. The problem is that you and I have been conditioned. We've been conditioned in a variety of ways that keep us from really having the happiness that we pursue so heavily. It's right there within us right now. We don't have to do anything for it. And you and I know that intellectually, right? We go, yeah, I know I could be happy. So why aren't you? And you might say, well, I am happy. Are you happy all the time? I know I'm not, but I'm getting better. Because I'm beginning to learn how to take control of this thing between my ears. I'm learning how to direct and control my own mind. And the better I get at that, the happier I am. So I thought it might be nice for you and I to really talk about what the heck is this thing called happiness? How do we get it? Or maybe better yet, how do we experience it more consistently? What prevents us? And what can allow us to experience it more? What is happiness? It's feeling good. And we've all learned different ways to do it. Some of us have learned that what we need to do is go to school for 14 years and then get out in the marketplace and be a doctor or be a lawyer so that we can begin to feel good about ourselves so other people feel good about us. We've all been taught what has to happen first to be happy. But you know what? It's the emperor's new clothes. It's all a lie. Why do so many people drink alcohol to excess? Why do people smoke cigarettes? Why is cocaine the #1 selling retail product in North America with over $100 billion in sales? These are all devices that people have learned to use to try and change the way they feel, to try and make themselves feel good, to feel happy. But the problem is none of them work long term. Even the highest high that a person can get from cocaine only lasts a short period of time. And the contrast when a person crashes to their normal state is intense. That's where the addiction comes from. And what we've got to learn to do is tap into the natural drug, if you will. Because it's not a drug. It's the natural source that's within every one of us at every moment of our life. We've got to stop buying into this false idea that something on the outside will ever make us happy, whether it be accomplishment or cocaine. Neither one's going to do it. Not long term. Plus, you cannot imagine the difference of joy that's inside of you if you just allow yourself to feel it. You can be happy right now. And if you doubt it, think about something. Have you ever seen a newborn baby? Have you ever seen them when they're not in physical pain? What are newborn babies like? They're happy about everything, aren't they? They're happy about the sky. They're happy about a smile. They're happy when they pass gas. And the people around them are happy. They go, isn't that cute? Look at this little baby. Oh, this is so cute. And we get happy about this stuff too. It's funny how human beings are. We think we're going to get the happiness on the outside. But where does it really come from? Yeah, you know. It's the inside. And nothing on the outside is ever going to give it long term. You say, yeah, but I made my $1 million and I felt happy. For how long? I did it too. It was kind of a neat feeling. But it wasn't what I thought it would be. And as soon as it was done, it was over. You know, you get a new relationship. You say, well, the relationship I'm in, that's not making me happy. I need a new relationship. And what happens? You're with this new person. Everything's great. You're so excited. You feel so close to them. You think about them constantly. You wake up thinking about them. You call them up in the line and say, gosh, you know, what are you thinking of me? And they say yes. And you feel so good. And how long does that last? Anywhere from 15 years to 15 minutes to 15 seconds. And all of a sudden it changes slightly. Because all the things that you're looking for on the outside only provide temporary feelings of joy. But you know what's exciting? Is inside of you at this moment as you listen to my voice. There's an unlimited sense of happiness and joy. It is your natural state. And it's the thing that you unleash, but you only unleash it when you meet the rules of your conditioning. What does it take for you to be happy? What really does it take for you to feel totally joyous inside? Will you be drunk with joy? Not with alcohol, with joy. Will you just felt incredible inside? What has to happen? What has to happen for you personally? Do you got to change the world? Do you got to just touch another person's life? Do you got to read a book? Do you got to watch a TV program? Do you got to listen to some music? Could you just feel it? See, when you listen to the music or you make a difference, in those moments, who creates that feeling inside of you? Isn't it really just you? That stuff's inside waiting to get out. But you have these rules about what has to happen. If X, Y, and Z occurs, then I can allow myself to feel good. What if you changed the rules and made happiness a natural way of living? I'll give you an example. I remember one time I was with my youngest son, Jarek, and we were in our car and the car broke down. And it was a hot day. And we were out in the San Gabriel Valley and it was smoggy and it was tough. And we were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for a tow truck to come, and it didn't come. And so instead of being all angry and upset, I thought to myself, this is stupid. I'm with my son. I can have a wonderful time. And the experience transformed because I asked a better question. I said, what could I do right now that would create joy for Jarek and myself? And I began to focus on different things we could talk about, and it turned into this special moment that I won't forget for many, many years. And we had this incredible bond and love right there, just in that moment, sitting in this hot car on this smoggy day, waiting for things to happen. I could have focused on where we're waiting for it to happen and been upset, but instead I focused on what can we do right now to create more joy. You know what? We get whatever we focus on. That's how powerful the human brain is. And what's interesting, though, is how my son interpreted it. I remember about a couple months later, we were talking about something else, and all of a sudden I knew he wanted some attention. He said, "Dad, can we go sit in the car out in the sun?" I thought, isn't that interesting? See, it's okay for us to say, well, a little kid doesn't know better, so they link up that the car is the source of that connection and happiness. But don't you and I do the same thing as adults? Don't we start thinking it's the education or the PhD or the car or the home or the income or the level of success in business or the quality of the article we write or whatever the case may be? Haven't we been seduced, at times at least? Maybe it's time we realize that it is the emperor's new clothes and that what we're doing is we're trying to cover up what's natural. That really our happiness is always there inside of us. And there's more of it there than you can ever get from something from the outside. So the question of this tape is, how do we achieve that ultimate goal? And by the way, you may be saying, well, this sounds really nice. You've been really nice and sensitive, and I like these kinds of feelings, but how is this going to help me in my job? How is this going to help me in my life? Life is a balance. I'm talking about having that balance. And I'll tell you, one of the most powerful changes that shifted my life, it's just an idea. But it's an idea that if you were to apply it, as simple as it is, if you were to actually live it, it could instantly change the quality of your life. And that idea is simply this. All of my life, I was conditioned to believe that if I achieved enough, if I helped enough people, if I did enough things, that I would be happy. So I was working very hard so I could achieve, so I could eventually be happy. And one day, I got this new concept in my head. What if I happily achieved? What if my goal was not to achieve, but my goal was to be happy? And that while I was happy, I was going to do things that contributed and made a difference, which will be great references for the power that I had when I unleashed and experienced the ultimate human emotion. I got to tell you what, the idea of putting happiness as higher on my list of values than achievement was a little scary for me at first. Because I thought, boy, if I feel happy, then I won't be driven to achieve. Maybe I won't want to work as hard. Maybe I won't help as many people. Maybe all these things that I identify with my life, maybe I won't have that same level of motivation. Maybe I got to keep achieving because that makes me, a person who contributes. And then eventually I can be happy. I don't want to take that away because I'll lose my drive. I was wrong. I was scared, but I was wrong. What happened was when I finally decided I was going to be happy along the way, that life was not an outcome, that it was a process, that I would achieve things and say, is this all there is? Unless along the way I enjoyed the process, that I was going to spend more of my time in life in the process than I was achieving. And if I wanted to be happy more of the time, I got to get committed to that idea. The minute I started living that way, my life changed and I went to a whole new level. I thought I was successful before. I thought, boy, look, I got my act together. All I can tell you is I got a new level of depth. So how do we create this real balance? How can we take what we've talked about thus far in this tape and make it practical so you can really use it, so you can really experience more of this big promise I've been telling you about, of that joy inside of you that you know is there? Well, let me give you 8 points. Number 1, we've already talked about. The first key to unleashing your happiness is to remember it's already there. To remember it's your natural state. I've said it a zillion times in this tape, and it may sound redundant to you, but I'm a big believer that repetition is the mother of skill. We hear it enough, we may remember it. Just think about it. Think about what's inside of you. I think that most people's unhappiness, that really the root of all human misery is the ignorance of our true nature and power. That it's all inside of us, it's not on the outside. See, most of us have been conditioned to believe that being happy is difficult instead of what's always there. See, I believe to be unhappy, you got to pervert your reality. Now, I've managed to pull this off in my own life as many times as I'm sure you have, but the reality of our existence is joy. In order to be unhappy, you got to develop false beliefs about what life is. You got to begin to believe that all these things have to occur for you to feel appreciative for this thing called life. That's crazy. And we've been sold and we've bought into that insane game. In fact, we've developed all these rules about all these different things that specifically have to occur at specific times in specific ways before we get to have those great feelings that we want inside. We begin to think that events are the source of our happiness, or that another person is the source of our happiness, or our kids are the source of our happiness, or our career is the source of our happiness. We start thinking we need another person to think that we can feel love inside of us, that it's coming from him or her. That's their enchanting words or those beloved whispers in our ears. That's what makes us feel really good. That's what makes us feel loved. That's what makes us feel happy. But we seldom stop to really consider, what are those feelings of love or security or peace? Where are they coming from? When we feel them in that moment, where are they coming from? Are they like sneaking out of that person's lips or mouth and into our ear and into our body and make us feel good? Of course not. We're unleashing those within ourselves in that moment. But you know what happens is, we have a situation like this where we feel good for a moment because of something on the outside, we've met one of our rules, and we think that that's real happiness, when we've really got an infinite reservoir of joy that's deep inside of us, that goes beyond anything you've ever felt before. And when something outside of us triggers it, it's usually like a little tiny trickle of joy that flows out. And what do we think? We go, boy, I'm so lucky that I have that person in my life, which you probably are, but that's not the source of your happiness. Because if that's the source of your happiness, what if that person never goes away? A little scary, huh? Or what if they pass away? Or what if something separates you at some time? You see, the fear that most people have in their lives of not being happy is because they think it's coming from the outside. They experience the object of their senses, and when they taste it, they think, boy, that joy is coming from that object, from that person, from that event. But in fact, we're only tasting our own inner feelings that are existing continuously. They're constant. And all that sweetness and all that love that you want so bad is flowing through your veins and your heart right now. There's a sea of real power inside of you. Everyone has this place inside of them, and all we've got to do is tap into it, touch it. But you can't do that as long as you believe happiness is on the outside. As long as you believe happiness is a reward. Happiness is not a reward. The reward is life itself. You've got the reward. Happiness is nothing but a state. Feeling good is a state of mind and emotion. And you can have it at any moment simply by claiming it. How do you claim it? Two ways. One, change the way you're using your body. If you're not feeling happy right now, I guarantee you may be doing several things. One is you may not be breathing. Now you say, well, what are you talking about? I'm breathing. Sure you are. But are there times when like you're frustrated or you're angry or you're concerned? Does your breathing pattern change? I can guarantee it does. What about your facial expressions? See, if you change your facial expressions, you immediately change how you feel. Try this right now. No one's around. They're not noticing. Put a big, stupid, silly grin on your face. Oh, come on. Nobody's going to notice. If you're in your car, turn to some other person who's in the traffic and grin at them with that big, huge grin and watch what happens. They'll think you're on drugs. It's okay. Just go ahead and do it. Try it. Or just do it right now. Come on. Smile real big. And while you're doing this big smile on your face thinking this is stupid and crazy, notice how you feel. See, you have 80 different muscles in your face. If you change the way you use them, you can make yourself feel happy. And I bet you already know the ways to do it. In fact, if I asked you to get depressed, you could pull that off, couldn't you? The point is simple. You can change the way you use your body and change your level of happiness. What else can you do? Well, let's go to step 2 of these 8 or however many points I decide to make out of these. Number 2 is really simply this. Change your focus and you change your level of happiness. Remember, it's not only your physical body and your beliefs that determine how happy you are, but what are you focusing on? See, right now you could get totally depressed. How would you do it? Well, you could use your body in ways that make you feel depressed, but also you could do it just by focusing on things that don't make it feel good. You could feel sad or you could feel angry. Couldn't you think of people that have wronged you in your past? Focus on that enough that you really began to feel it again and feel real angry all over again, even though they're not here. If you really wanted it, couldn't you do that? Couldn't you feel really sad remembering things you missed out on? All you'd have to do is focus on them. What about joy? What about pleasure? What about ecstasy? Can you remember a time in your life when you were feeling feelings and emotions of absolute ecstasy? How good that really felt? Whatever it was. Could you go back to that time and remember it? Actually re-experience the feelings? Begin to breathe and feel the same way until you felt so good inside? Can you remember times when you felt totally loved? See, if you really want to be happy, you have to become good at what I call memory management. Memory management means if you're unhappy right now, it's because you're not controlling the focus of your mind. You're focusing on something that makes you feel lousy instead of something that makes you feel good. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're traveling in a wonderful place like New York City, which has all kinds of opportunities to show yourself how resourceful you really are in just getting across streets. The bottom line is, let's say you step off the street corner and an ambulance comes by and almost hits you. Now, how are you going to feel? Well, it all depends on what you focus on. Some people freak out and get unbelievably angry. How dare they do that? How could they possibly do this? They don't even watch it. They're going to kill somebody. They could have killed me. Think of that. I could be in the hospital right now. I could be in the hospital. My kids wouldn't have me take care of them. And then what would I do? And then I lose my job and they go on and on and on and on and on. Nothing's happened. Nothing has happened. But you know what? These people have not perfected their mind. They have not learned to take control of their mind. Their mind is controlling them. And if you don't control your mind has the capacity to think of every possibility. Undisciplined because of its cultural conditioning through television and schooling and advertising, the brain has learned to try and protect itself, and a lot of people's brains have learned to become incredibly skeptical, pessimistic, to find out what's wrong so they don't get disappointed. If you don't control your mind, it'll control you. You must control your focus. What could have happened in that same situation? You could have felt grateful. You could have felt good or happy. You could have said, wow, That thing almost hit me, but it didn't. That should have hit me, but it didn't. Somebody must be protecting me up there. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but it sure make you feel good if you looked at it that way. Or you might think, isn't that amazing how fast I am? I got off and I instantly reacted. That is hot. I'm thinking where I could use that. I could chase down the man of my dreams with that kind of speed. I could go out and make my job work better. I could be on a track team. See, it all depends on what you focus on. That's what's going to determine how you feel. Nothing more. Remember, nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. And the meaning you give things is usually based on what you choose to focus on. So control your focus. Here's step 3 to happiness. Ask happy questions. Ask empowering questions. Now, if you spend any time with me, you know I talk all the time about physiology, changing focus, and on asking better questions. And the reason I talk about those is they are the fundamental control tools to your brain, your mind, and your emotions, and therefore the quality of your life. Questions you need to ask yourself when things come up is not, what does this mean? By the way, that's the natural question that comes up. Your brain is always trying to avoid pain and gain pleasure. It's the way you're wired. It's a survival instinct. Whenever you're going to go do something, your brain says, what does this mean? And what should I do? Is it going to mean pain or is it going to mean pleasure? Is it going to lead me toward more things that I want, or is it going to take me down the road that I don't want to be in based on my past experience? And the bottom line is, in pursuit of what does this mean, we get to points where we're not sure what things are going to mean. So let's say you want to make an investment. Should I invest in a stock or not? Well, the brain's asking, what is it going to mean? If I invest in a stock, is it going to mean pleasure, i.e. profit, and I'm going to feel good and have more money and things will be nice? Or is it going to mean pain? I'm going to lose what I've got here, or it's not going to grow at all. But see, the problem is, if you ask what is this going to mean, it's very difficult to be certain, absolutely certain, which one it's going to lead to. And that's where people drive themselves a bit crazy. I'll give you an even more challenging situation. Sometimes you try and do everything right and things turn up wrong, and then you try and figure out why they turned up wrong. Why is it you gave your all and it still didn't work, or somebody didn't acknowledge it, or it didn't get supported, or there's an idea that's so useful but no one will listen to you right now. Or you worked all night on a project and then your dog ate it the next morning. If you ask questions like, what does this mean? You might come up with answers like, well, it's another example of me sabotaging myself. Maybe you're not sabotaging yourself. That makes you just feel bad about yourself. Maybe you just weren't smart. Maybe you let the dog eat your thing because you didn't put it on a higher shelf. Maybe you were just stupid. Maybe you weren't sabotaging. Look at it that way. See, we got to be careful about the meaning we give things by asking the question, what does this mean? A better question, how can I use this? How is this important in my life? What can I learn from this? These are the kinds of questions that will make you feel happier, that will make you feel good in your life, because ask and you shall receive. If you want a better quality of life, if you want more happiness, ask questions that lead you to a place where you feel better about yourself and your environment. I guarantee if you do not feel happy on a regular basis, it's because you've got a set of habitual questions you ask yourself, like, why does this always happen to me? Or why can't I pull this off? And again, if you say, why can't I? Your brain says, ask and you shall receive. Here's why you can't. Because you're stupid and you're an idiot and you don't follow through. Because you sabotage. It'll come up with a reason whether it's true or not. So you got to take control of the question asking process. So, what am I really happy about in my life right now would be a good question. Now, if your brain goes, nothing, next question is, what could I be happy about if I wanted to be happy about something? What am I really enjoying in my life right now? What could I be excited about if I wanted to be excited? What's really wonderful in my life? What's great about this? What is working? See, these are questions that will really support you. And if you're in a lousy state, you don't ask questions like, how much longer will this last? Or, can I survive this? Can I survive this? Makes you doubt whether you can even make it through where you are. Those are disempowering questions. Instead, if you want to break out of that state, you might want to ask a question like, well, will this even matter 10 years from now? So that's key number 3. Ask effective questions. Control the focus of your mind by asking questions. The 4th key to experience consistent happiness, and boy, I'll tell you one, this is a big one. Learn to be a perceiver instead of a judger. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a problem with judging too quickly. And that is when you judge what things mean too quickly, oftentimes you feel pain about things you don't have to feel pain about. For example, you ever gotten upset about what you thought somebody said, and later on you find out that's not what they said, or it's not what they meant? And you're all uptight about it because you felt that they had judged you, you had decided that's what things had meant. Later on you found out something differently, or maybe you had an experience like I've had. I felt like somebody was giving me the runaround one day, and everything I tried to accomplish, they seemed to get in my way of accomplishing it. I felt like they were trying to manipulate me. And I was starting to get kind of angry, quite honestly, inside, because like, man, I had judged these people are just trying to manipulate me. And sure enough, they got me to this place, and we walked in this building, and we turned on the lights, and it was a surprise birthday party. I had judged instead of allowing myself to perceive and wait and see what does this really mean. You and I empower our lives whenever we allow ourselves to have a new level of choice as to what things mean. I'll give you an example. Have you had a day in your life that you would look back on and would say, gosh, it was one of the worst days of my life. It was so frustrating, so angry. I was so hurt by that person. Don't we all have some place in our life that if I said, what was the ultimate, most painful experience of your life, you could remember it and go back to it if you really needed to? The question I have for you is, if you remembered a time like that, would it be fair to say that as you look back on it now, the meaning is different than it was back then? That as you look back on it now, you may see, gosh, it was painful, but that pain kind of shaped a part of my life and has made me more sensitive to other people. Maybe you were abused as a child, and that sensitivity now makes you care more deeply for other people. It would make sure that you would never behave the way you were treated, as an example. Or maybe what happened is you had a painful experience in your life at the end. You thought, man, that's the end. But as you look back on it now, it was really the beginning. That the reality is, if you look back on it now, it was so painful, it changed the direction of your life, and it's brought you to the place you are today. My point is, in your life, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But one thing is for absolutely certain. At the end of the day, you're not going to know which one they really are. Because some days you thought were your worst are going to turn out to be your best. So when you start judging of things being good or bad, soft or hard, the right or the wrong way to do something, maybe there isn't a right or a wrong way 100%. I'm not saying there aren't any rules. I'm just saying maybe we need to soften our view of life a little bit and give ourselves more space to learn and grow. That as we learn more about things, our view may change. But once we lock out that this is it, we stop our growth. See, knowledge is not power. Many times knowledge closes the door. It's like when you're a child, It's like the door is open all the way up. You want to take everything in. But see, as you learn more and more, you begin to close the door more and more and more and more because you become more and more certain that you got the whole thing figured out. See, the thing we've got to discipline ourselves on is saying, hey, this feels right to me. I think I got it handled, and I'm open to learning more. It seems like this is true, but I always want to know that the meaning may change as I learn more about this person or this situation. Once we start judging a person as being wrong or right, or a situation as being wrong or right, we start to shut that door and we take away our choice and we take away some of our happiness. We distance ourselves from people, events, opportunities, and certain emotions. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to rob ourselves of that. See, you got to make sure that there are other meanings. And here's the question to ask yourself to release yourself from judgment. The question's simple. The question is there any other possible meaning that this could have? Or another question might be, what would be a better way of looking at this that would empower me and others? See, the only way you eventually master meaning is by mastering your mind. By realizing you determine the meaning that comes out of something. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning you give it. See, something isn't good or bad until you decide that's what it is. Till you give it that label, and then it becomes a reality for you. And just remember this. The people that you may have once thought were successful may not have been successful at all for only one reason. They didn't master meaning. The John Belushis of the world were incredibly successful in getting other people to laugh. Obviously, he wasn't very good at getting himself to laugh at critical times. He didn't master the meaning of things. He created all the success around him as being something to feel bad about. That took effort. You got to work at that thing. And I'm not being mean about someone who's no longer here, because I was a great fan of his. But clearly he didn't master his mind, and that's why he's no longer here. Elvis Presley had a similar problem. And we can go on and on down the list. In fact, personally, I believe that if you have success on the exterior, but you're not happy on the interior, you're far from successful. We've got to create a meaning that gives us joy on the inside while we share that joy with others, where our life truly does make a difference, but we enjoy the process. Otherwise, we live the ultimate nightmare, not the ultimate dream. Principle number 5 to having consistent happiness is learning a little bit of how to use your brain instead of having it use you. And the way to utilize it is using a simple principle of human perception, and that is the principle of contrast. Contrast is an invaluable way to change the way you feel about virtually anything. It's something that got used on you when you were a kid. So you may have been complaining about something. You had this perception that you turned into a judgment. You were judging. Boy, I need some new shoes. I'm upset. How come all the other kids have new shoes and I don't have new shoes? And you went to your parents and said, I want some new shoes. And your mother said, look, don't you complain about not having new shoes. Look at these people over here. They don't have any feet. And you went, you got a point. Okay. I can understand that. They use a little contrast on you and they just shut you down in your tracks. They totally change what things meant to you by giving you a new reference, a contrasting reference, if that makes sense to you. We need to learn to do this for ourselves. The bottom line is what looks like a problem may be an opportunity, but you've got to use contrast to your advantage. Here's number 6. Number 6 key to achieving your ultimate goal on a regular basis, that is happiness, is very simple. Soften your rules. What do I mean by that? Well, you and I have talked about it, and I've alluded to it at least throughout this tape. We have developed a set of rules about what has to happen before we can feel good and have this experience called happiness. And unfortunately for many of us, we have very intense rules. That is, we have 80 things that have to occur before we can finally be happy. Everything has to be in place. For example, today's woman, quote unquote. What does she have to do to be happy? Well, she has to be Superwoman. She has to take unbelievable care of her husband. She's got to take unbelievable care of herself. She's got to take unbelievable care of her kids. She's got to be a great businesswoman and career-oriented person. She's got to make sure she comes home and that everybody's fed and everybody's nurtured and everybody's supported. And then she's got to be a great lover for her husband, and she's probably exhausted. See, the bottom line is, today's woman's been conditioned. You got to be perfect. You got to be all these things in order to feel fulfilled. With that many rules, with that many things having to be perfect for a person to feel fulfilled, they've set themselves up for tremendous pain. Because it's going to be so hard to be perfect in all those areas all simultaneously. I don't know how today's woman can do it, much less today's man. He's got all his rules, too, that have been conditioned into him. And I know they vary from person to person. I was talking to a gentleman who's a big oil man. For him to feel successful, he has to have net available to invest in liquid assets for him on a consistent basis, $20 million. Now, think about that. That might create a little stress in your life. You know, that might be a little difficult for you to meet, especially if the most you've ever had liquid was $10 million. Be even worse, I guess, if you only had 10,000. But the point is, most of us have set ourselves up for failure, and some of us have rules that are impossible to meet. I can tell you time and time again, when I talk to people that truly are happy, one of the major reasons is they got rules like, in order to be happy, I have to wake up. Or people say things like, every day above ground is a great day. How do I know if I'm happy or not? How do I know if I'm successful? If I wake up and look that I'm above ground, then I'm successful. See, what a lot of us have done is we've set up where 50 things all have to be happening simultaneously for us to feel good and be happy. But if just one's out of alignment, boy, do we get upset. In fact, have you ever noticed how things can be really great in your life, and then one thing, just one thing can be out of alignment, and all of a sudden your whole focus goes there, and your mind goes crazy. You start getting all upset and everything else, when everything else in your life could be in great shape. We need to remind ourselves that if we got one thing going on well, things are going well. And the reality is, if you look at your life, how many things really are going well in your life if you were being honest with yourself? If you weren't judging by these unbelievable standards where everything has to be perfect simultaneously, where you were the ultimate man, the ultimate woman, the ultimate performer, the ultimate career person, how many things are really going well if you focused on them? But see, what we've got to do is we've got to make it so we have more ways to feel happy and less ways to feel unhappy. That's the bottom line. Point number 7. If you really want to be happy, use happy words to describe the way you're feeling on a consistent basis. Develop a habitual vocabulary that is filled with words that create pleasurable emotion within you. We have a lot more words that describe negative emotions than we do positive, and so we tend to use them more often sometimes. Anytime you're unhappy, I guarantee you're putting a word on your experience, a word that creates a judgment about it that is negative, that creates a negative emotion or feeling. So let me just offer you some words that are enjoyment or pleasure-oriented, happiness-oriented. Here they are: enjoyment, euphoria, a sense of well-being, a sense of contentment, ease, comfort, coziness, gratification, satisfaction, luxury, to relish something, to feel a zest for something, sweetness, entertainment, happiness, gladness, delight, delection, joy, joyfulness, cheerfulness, exultation, exuberance, glee, sunshine, overjoyed, intoxicated, rapture, jubilation, celebration, gladdened, feasted, heartwarmed, fascinated, captivated, enthralled, enchanted, tickled, thrilled, beaming, basking in, starry-eyed, glowing, radiant. Those are just a few. What if when somebody said, how's it going, you said things different than, okay, doing all right, surviving, hanging tough? If you were to use those kinds of phrases to describe how you're feeling, what you do is you immediately denigrate your experience. You lower the level of enjoyment you have by the words that you're using. Amplify your emotion by using new labels. If you're going to judge instead of perceive, why not judge by putting labels on your experience that make you feel great instead of words that make you feel lousy? It's a very simple thing, and it may sound so simple you may not do it. So think about it. If when you felt pretty good you said, I'm feeling excellent, I'm feeling outrageous, I'm feeling fabulous, if you kept saying that on a regular basis, would you not begin to feel that way rather than if you said, I'm doing okay, fair to middling? See, think about it. When you begin to use those phrases, you have to change your emotional state. And you may be feeling great, but you say, I'm feeling okay out of habit, and pretty soon you don't feel as good as you could have. Pay attention to the vocabulary you use consistently. You want to be happier? Build up a vocabulary. Write down some words that you're going to use. Maybe some of the ones I just dropped on you to make yourself feel great. Or if you really want to feel like heck, here, I can offer you some words to use on a regular basis. Talk about how unpleasing things are to you, or displeasing, or disagreeable, or undesirable, or unappealing, or unattractive, or unengaging, or uninviting, or distasteful, or unsavory, or unpalatable, or ugly, or offensive, or objectionable, or repugnant, or contrary to your feelings, or repulsive, or vile, or nasty, or noxious, or rotten, or putrid. How's your life? How you doing today? Putrid. Think of how you'd feel if you did that. Horrible, horrid, atrocious, atrocity, hideous, terrible, awful, dire, hostile, antagonistic, averse, unfriendly, uncared for, unvalued, unprized, despised, lowly, unpopular, out of favor, misunderstood, misprized, unbeloved, uncherished, loveless, forsaken, rejected, jilted, thrown over, spurned. If you really want to feel bad, just pick from that list and use those kinds of words to describe your life, your relationships, your business on a regular basis. I guarantee no problem you'll be depressed in a short period of time. See, if you want to change your life, change your habitual vocabulary. Do it now. Simple step, write down a couple of words you use on a regular basis to describe how you're feeling that make you feel even worse than you really were feeling. And then decide you're not going to use the words to describe yourself or how you're feeling for the next 30 days. Sound like a deal? Just try it and see what happens. And in their place, write down the words that you want to use on a regular basis to describe how you're feeling and how you're doing in your life. And make sure they're words that amplify the positive emotion. That's point 7. Here's our final point. We'll wrap up. Point number 8 on how to achieve your ultimate goal, happiness on a consistent basis. It's very simple. Hold yourself to a new standard. So wait a second. I thought you said make my rules easier. You're right, I did, except there's got to be a new standard in your life. And your new standard is simply this. You adopt a belief that not to be happy is to be a failure. And for those of you who are motivated to succeed, this ought to really do it to you. What I mean is, most people do not make happiness a big enough priority. If you decide right now that being happy is the only real success, then I suggest that you'll achieve it. Because we always get what we focus on, as we talked about earlier. We've got to make sure, though, that we must be happy. Not that we should be happy, not that we could be happy, that it's really a must. That it's something that must happen, that you must do it. Not the outside environment, not your brother, your sister, your friends, your neighbors, your boss, but you, and that you can do it. If you really adopt that core belief and you measure on a regular basis saying, hey, I got to be happy. That's the way I got to live. Otherwise, I'm being abusive to life. Otherwise, I'm giving a slap in the face to my Creator. What if you really looked at life that way? That not to enjoy the gifts that have been given you would be the ultimate blasphemy. All I've tried to do in this tape is get you to think at a new level. Get you to focus on the possibility of swinging the pendulum where you spend a lot more time in the happiness mode and a lot less in the pain mode. And certainly you deserve that. You know what else is exciting about knowing that you can be happy at any moment? It also relieves you of the burden of trying to make everybody else happy. Now, I know you still do it because you care about people. I do too. But the reality is when you realize that you don't have to do anything for yourself to be happy in a moment, then you also begin to realize other people don't have to do anything either. They can be happy right now. You can stop trying to make everyone happy, which probably drives you crazy because you can never do it successfully. You might for the moment get someone to be happy. The only way they're going to be happy long term is when they claim their real power and when they stop buying into the lie that something outside them controls them. When they realize that the only reason they don't have the joy that they want is they've not claimed it. And I'm not saying in this tape program, by the way, that the whole purpose is just to go out and bliss out and be by yourself and feel good, because you and I live in a Western culture. As I've said many times, if you just sit in a Western culture and just bliss out and feel good, somebody will come and take your furniture. So you got to do more than that. And you do have to be active. But I'll tell you, my idea of success has changed throughout the years. Growing up poor, I thought it was money. Then I realized it certainly isn't money. It's contributing to other people. Then I contributed to other people, and I thought, gosh, that's not it either. I still don't feel fulfilled. I feel good about myself. I'm proud, but that doesn't make me feel totally fulfilled, because here I'm achieving, helping others, but I'm not feeling as happy as I could. I'm burning myself out. And what I've looked for in life is the balance. And I now have a new definition of success. And it's how I measure myself, and it's how I encourage others who ask me how to measure their own success. And the measure I have is a two-step process. Number one, how happy are you? And the bottom line is, if you're not happy with how happy you are, you can change that. You can do it in a moment. You can change the way you're breathing. You ask yourself a great question. You can focus on what's great in your life. You can use some contrast. There's so many tools you've got in this set of tapes. One of them alone could work. You don't have to use them all. You don't have to go through 8 steps to make it work. I said, but number 2 is, how happy are the people who are around you? See, because there was a time in my life when I had a standard only for my own happiness. And so I was happy, but nobody else knew it. They weren't happy being around me. So I made the distinction that I don't want to just be happy, I want to be cheerful. What cheerfulness really means to me is that you're so happy on the inside that you also express it on the outside so it affects the people around you. And so I guess my new definition of success is real simple. It's, am I living a life where I'm experiencing more and more pleasure and less pain? And in the process of living it, is the way I'm living it creating more and more pleasure for others and less pain for them? If I'm feeling better and better all the time, and I can get other people around me to feel better and better, if I can feel less pain and they can feel less pain, if we can continue to expand in that direction, I think there's a reason why our brain wants to move towards pleasure. It's because it leads us to a place where we're really connected with our Creator. That may sound weird to you, but I think there's a reason why human beings are wired the way they're wired. And I think the easiest way to get to your Creator, the easiest way to have that joy, is to know that those feelings are available now. And to hold yourself to a standard where you cause yourself to feel them on a regular basis, not because you have to, but because you deserve to. But you got to hold the standard. So in summary, what have we said? Well, we've said a lot of things in this tape, but I guess the most important thing we've said is whether you're happy or not is not a question of whether the happiness is there. It's there inside of you, at levels of intensity and of depths you've never dreamed of. But you got to open the spout. You got to let what's in you out, and you got to realize that you're really the source. You got to remember there's nothing outside of you that's going to create it for you, and that the only way to really have this ongoing happiness is to change your focus, to change some of your core beliefs, to realize you don't have to do anything to be happy. You don't have to be responsible to something to be happy. You don't have to achieve to be happy, that you can happily achieve. You don't have to choose between the two. You don't have to give up being an achiever and a doer and a person that makes things happen and just be somebody who just blisses out. You can bliss out while you work. What a concept. You can feel so good while you make that difference with your children. You can feel so good while you build your empire. But you don't have to wait to feel good. And then if you feel good along the way, you're liable to build the empire bigger. You're liable to have a better impact on your kids and maybe a better role model for them as well. Maybe the whole message of this whole tape is just to remind you that the only way you achieve your ultimate goal of happiness is by perfecting your mind, by taking control, by mastering it. And God forbid if you were to start developing this kind of habit where you feel good on a consistent basis, because if you really start feeling good, you know what happens? This stuff is catchy. It's like a disease. It spreads to all the people within your sphere of influence, and all of a sudden they're starting to feel good, and pretty soon you become rather successful because you're experiencing tons of pleasure and very little pain, and the people around you are impacted by the way you live, and they start feeling better too. What a terrible world if we all did this on a consistent basis. Of course, we all know that's impossible. We know we couldn't feel good on a consistent basis, but what if we were wrong? Have you ever been wrong about what you're really capable of, and then you were pretty pleased to find out you were better than you thought you were? I think you and I every day begin to find out we're much more than we thought we were. We're much more than our physical body. We're much more than we ever dreamed was possible. Maybe just this physical body and this thing you call yourself is just a vehicle, and there's a flame burning inside, that spirit of who you really are, which is greater than anything you've dreamed of. But I think the only time you really get in touch with that part of you is when you're feeling happy, when you're feeling that base level of joy, and you can have it right now. So claim your real power and achieve your ultimate goal today. And then do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Don't make it something you reach for. Make it something you experience. Make it the way you live. So my challenge to you until we meet again is to remember, the world is as you see it. It's your mind, not the world, that's the source of all your experience. And if you don't like what you're experiencing, change what you're doing inside your head. Take control. And until I visit with you again, remember, live with passion.